This audiobook will expose the reason you're still broke, and it has nothing to do with how hard you work. You've been lied to, conditioned to believe saving pennies and playing it safe would make you rich. But while you followed the rules, the wealthy rewrote them. Before we begin, drop a comment. Tell me where you're listening from right now. I want to know where this wake-up call is hitting. And if you're tired of being the one who's always behind, always cautious, always almost, then subscribe right now. Because the law of money isn't polite. It's the truth no one handed you. Until now. Chapter 1: The Invisible Code of Cash. Money in all its forms is not merely a medium of exchange. It is not simply a tool, nor just a symbol of economic participation. Money is structure. It is governed by quiet laws, principles that exist beneath the surface of every transaction, every account, every decision. And yet most people operate without any awareness that these laws exist at all. The result is a global economy in which millions labor endlessly, hoping effort alone will produce financial freedom. But money does not reward effort indiscriminately. It rewards alignment. It rewards understanding. This chapter is an introduction to the laws of money most people will never be taught, not in school, not in business, and certainly not by chance. These are the principles that govern wealth, regardless of age, background, or circumstance. And until these laws are understood, financial struggle is not a matter of bad luck, but of inevitability. Let us begin with the most foundational of these laws. Money responds to value, not effort. This distinction is critical. Effort is physical. It is emotional. It is at times exhausting. But money is not sentimental. It does not reward people for how tired they are, how long they've worked, or how much they've sacrificed. It rewards value, and value is defined not by the giver but by the receiver. To understand this, consider the difference between a laborer working 12-hour days under the sun and an entrepreneur who sends one email and earns 10 times as much. The discrepancy is not about fairness. It is about perceived value in the marketplace. The laborer is compensated for physical output. The entrepreneur is compensated for solving problems at scale. In economic systems governed by capital, the person who solves the greatest problem for the most people in the most efficient way will attract the most money. This is the first truth. Money is a mirror of usefulness. It is not about motion. It is about meaning. The second law is equally misunderstood. Money flows toward clarity. People often speak in vague terms about wanting more money or desiring financial freedom. These phrases feel motivating, but they are functionally meaningless unless they are made specific. Without specificity, there is no direction, and without direction, money cannot flow. The most financially successful individuals are not necessarily the most talented or even the most strategic. They are often simply the most focused. They can articulate exactly what they want, why they want it, and how they intend to achieve it. That level of clarity creates a gravitational pull. Money is drawn to people who know where they are going. Clarity removes resistance. It silences confusion. It allows decisions to be made quickly, investments to be allocated wisely, and opportunities to be seized without hesitation. This is the second truth. Vagueness repels wealth. Precision attracts it. Now consider the third law. Money honors certainty. In uncertain markets, people follow certainty. In uncertain times, they pay for leadership. The person who demonstrates conviction, who speaks with calm authority and executes with confidence, will always command more economic power than the one who hesitates. This is not about arrogance. It is about trust. People trust confidence. Institutions trust confidence. Investors, customers, and even colleagues all respond to it. Certainty, therefore, becomes a currency in itself. It communicates, "You can count on me to deliver." That signal alone changes the dynamic of negotiation, partnership, and pricing. The third truth is this: the more certainty you project, the more opportunity you attract. Let us move now to the fourth law. Money follows systems, not emotions. There is a common misconception that if one simply feels good about money, speaks positively about it, or maintains an abundant mindset, financial prosperity will follow. While mindset certainly influences behavior, money itself is governed by systems. Those who build systems that generate income even when they are tired, distracted, or overwhelmed inevitably outperform those who depend on motivation alone. A system may be as simple as a recurring service, an automated product, or a disciplined savings and investment plan. What matters is not the size of the system, but its consistency. This is the fourth truth. Emotional energy may initiate progress, but only systems sustain wealth. Now we arrive at the fifth law. Money multiplies under stewardship. To steward something means to manage it responsibly on behalf of a greater purpose. Money grows in the presence of discipline, structure, and accountability. The reason so many people remain in cycles of financial scarcity is not because they lack income, but because they have not yet learned how to protect and direct what they already have. Without a structure for budgeting, saving, and investing, money flows outward by default. Every dollar not assigned a task will find its way to consumption. Wealth is not measured by how much you make, it is measured by how well you manage what you have. This is the fifth truth. Wealth is not built by accumulation alone, but by intelligent allocation. Let us pause and reflect. These 5 laws are not motivational concepts. They are not theories or philosophies. They are repeatable, observable, and non-negotiable principles, and they operate whether you are aware of them or not. Much like gravity, they do not require your belief to function, but understanding them will change your financial life. Money is neither cruel nor generous. It is simply responsive. It responds to order. It responds to discipline. It responds to clarity, value, certainty, and systems. If your financial life has felt chaotic, it is not because you are undeserving. It is likely because the system you are using, or the absence of one, is producing random results. When you understand the law, money begins to behave differently. You no longer chase it. You position yourself to receive it. You no longer guess. You calculate. You move from financial reaction to financial strategy. And that shift, from emotional to intentional, is where transformation begins. As we conclude this opening chapter, take a moment to examine your current reality. What systems do you have in place? What value do you bring to the marketplace? And is it clearly understood by others? How much clarity do you possess about your financial goals? How often are you operating from certainty rather than hesitation? And are you stewarding your income in a way that multiplies it, or merely consuming it as it arrives? These are not casual questions. They are diagnostics. And the answers reveal not who you are, but how close you are to financial alignment. The truth is, money is not elusive. It is structured, it is obedient, and it always follows those who understand its laws. Chapter 2, Value First, Dollars Second. One of the most profound misunderstandings in the world of money is the idea that income is a reflection of effort, that if one simply works long enough or hard enough, the reward will eventually arrive in the form of financial security or wealth. While effort is certainly a factor in productivity, it is not, and has never been, the determining variable for income generation. Money in its essence is not a payment for time, it is compensation for value, and value, unlike time, is not distributed equally. To understand this distinction, we must first clarify the nature of value itself. Value is not what you believe you're worth. It is not how much you desire to be paid. Value is what someone else is willing to exchange for a benefit they perceive. It is external, not internal. It is determined by the marketplace, not your resume, not your intentions, and certainly not your self-worth. In this sense, money becomes the measurement of how effectively you are solving problems for others, not how hard you are trying, but how meaningfully you are serving. Let us take, for example, 2 individuals. One is a software engineer earning $200 an hour. The other is a hospital janitor earning $15. Both are working. Both are contributing. But in the eyes of the economy, the software engineer is producing a higher order solution that can scale, automate, and affect large systems. The janitor, while providing important and necessary service, is creating value that is seen as more localized and less scalable. The differential is not about human worth. It is about market impact. The law is this: the more scalable and irreplaceable your value, the greater your income potential. And once this principle is understood, a new question emerges: how do I increase my value? This is the foundation of wealth building. To become more valuable, one must do more than simply refine their current skills. They must understand where they sit within the hierarchy of value and learn how to ascend it. The hierarchy of value is a conceptual model that helps explain why some individuals earn hundreds of dollars an hour while others earn minimum wage. It is not about intelligence. It is not about effort. It is about leverage and problem solving. At the base of this hierarchy, we find labor-based value. This includes jobs that require physical effort, presence, and time. These roles are critical to society, but have limited upward mobility, as they tend to rely on input matching out. In other words, if you stop showing up, the value stops being produced. One level above that is skilled work. These roles require a defined skill set, often involving certification or training, such as electricians, accountants, or mechanics. These individuals are compensated more because the problems they solve require specific knowledge. However, their value is still often capped by time. They are paid by the hour or per project. Above that is strategic value. This tier includes individuals who solve more complex problems, often by coordinating systems, making high-leverage decisions, or leading teams. Managers, consultants, and directors often fall into this category. Their actions affect outcomes beyond their own desk, and thus their compensation grows. At the top of the hierarchy is visionary value. These individuals are founders, creators, or investors. They do not simply work in systems, they build them. They do not execute instructions, they architect the rules. They are rewarded not because they work more hours, but because they generate value at scale, often through systems that continue to produce even in their absence. It is this upper level, the realm of entrepreneurs, innovators, and capital allocators, that experiences exponential income. And it is this level that most people never access, not because they are incapable, but because they never learned the ladder existed. Once again, the truth is not that effort has no place. It is that effort, when misapplied, creates exhaustion instead of elevation. And wealth is never the result of exhaustion. The next law to understand is this: money moves fastest through systems. A system is any structure that allows value to be delivered predictably, consistently, and without dependence on your direct effort. Consider a YouTube creator who publishes a video that earns income for years, or a software developer who writes code that automates a business function, or a financial advisor who builds an investment portfolio that compounds for a decade. These are systems. They produce, they operate, and most importantly, they scale. Contrast this with the person who must clock in every morning to earn a wage. If they stop, the money stops. This is not a moral failing, it is a mechanical limitation. And the solution is to begin thinking, not just about what you do, but how what you do can be structured, duplicated, and delivered without your constant presence. This is how businesses grow. This is how creators scale. This is how wealth is built, not by intensity, but by architecture. The greater the system, the less your personal limitations impact your income. Let us now revisit the original phrase of this chapter: value first, dollars second. This principle holds profound importance because it describes the correct sequence of wealth generation. The mistake many people make is to reverse this order. They focus first on what they can earn, and only afterward think about what they are offering. They ask, how much will I be paid? How much do I deserve? How fast can I make this money? But the correct question is, what problem do I solve? And how deeply, how quickly, and how permanently can I solve it? When this becomes your focus, your value rises. And where value increases, compensation follows. This mindset shift from price-centered to value-centered changes everything. It alters how you approach your career, your clients, your content, your creativity. It makes you indispensable, and the marketplace rewards indispensability. The economy is a system built on exchange. If you want to earn more, you must give more, not in quantity but in quality, relevance, and urgency. The world will always pay a premium for problems that are solved quickly, elegantly, and permanently. Be the person who delivers that kind of solution, and you will never be without financial opportunity. Let us close this chapter with a simple but powerful exercise. Ask yourself, what problem do I solve? Who do I solve it for? What is the cost of that problem if left unsolved? And how can I solve it better than anyone else? These questions are not academic, they are strategic. They are the beginning of your ascent into higher levels of value, where income is no longer capped by time, but only by imagination. This is not a motivational idea, it is a mechanical one. Value determines wealth. And when you understand how to increase value, you gain control of your financial destiny. The world is not withholding wealth from you, it is simply waiting to reward the version of you that solves bigger problems in better ways for more people. In the next chapter, we will explore the myth of hard work and why effort alone, no matter how intense, is never enough to create real wealth. Not because hard work is wrong, but because without leverage, it becomes a trap. Chapter 3. The Myth of Hard Work. Among the most enduring beliefs in modern society is the idea that hard work guarantees success. From early childhood, we are taught that the more hours we put in, the more effort we exert, the more we will eventually be rewarded. Phrases such as hard work pays off and no pain, no gain echo through classrooms, workplaces, and homes. And while discipline and perseverance are undoubtedly virtues, the belief that hard work alone creates wealth is not only inaccurate, it is financially dangerous. Hard work is honorable. It is often necessary. But hard work is not the secret to wealth. If it were, the hardest working people in the world would also be the richest. Yet this is rarely the case. In this chapter, we will examine why hard work, when disconnected from leverage, value, and structure, becomes a trap, not a path. We will analyze the difference between effort and effectiveness, and how those who understand this distinction ascend to levels of wealth that hard work alone can never access. To begin, let us define what we mean by hard work. Hard work generally refers to the prolonged application of physical or mental effort. It implies sacrifice, long hours, and a degree of personal strain. But money does not measure effort. Money measures results, and results are not always proportional to time or energy. This principle can be observed in every industry. Two individuals may each spend 10 hours a day working, one digging trenches, the other managing capital markets. The difference in income is not about who is sweating more. It is about who is creating more economic value, and more importantly, who is leveraging that value. The laborer's effort is linear. 1 hour equals 1 hour of productivity. The investor's effort, however, may be exponential. One decision may generate returns for years. This is not a judgment of character. It is a structural reality. Wealth is not produced through linear exchange. It is created when effort intersects with leverage, and this introduces a critical concept. Leverage is the multiplier of effort. There are three primary forms of leverage that separate the wealthy from the merely hardworking. The first is time leverage, the second is financial leverage, the third is technological leverage. Time leverage involves using the time and talent of others to multiply outcomes. This could mean building a team, delegating responsibilities, or creating processes that allow your business to function without your constant involvement. Those who remain trapped in the belief that they must do everything themselves are limited not by their capacity, but by their refusal to scale. Financial leverage refers to the strategic use of capital to accelerate growth. This includes investments, credit, and resource allocation that amplifies returns. While misuse of leverage can be dangerous, the disciplined use of capital is a key feature in the portfolio of every successful entrepreneur and investor. Technological leverage involves using systems, tools, and automation to produce results at scale. Software, algorithms, content distribution, and online platforms allow individuals to reach thousands, or even millions without additional hours hurts. These three forms of leverage are available to anyone, yet rarely pursued by those who have been conditioned to equate hard work with virtue. The truth is this: hard work without leverage results in exhaustion, but effort combined with leverage results in freedom. Let us examine a classic example: a freelance graphic designer. This individual may work diligently delivering high-quality designs for clients, but if they are billing by the hour, they are locked into a linear model. Their income ceiling is defined by their time and physical capacity. Now imagine that same designer decides to build a product, a digital course teaching others how to master design. They spend time up front creating the material, then distribute it through an online platform. With the right systems, that product can now sell to hundreds or thousands of customers, regardless of the designer's daily schedule. This is leverage. And this is how wealth is built. Working hard is commendable, but it must be directed toward building systems, not just producing output. Otherwise, you remain your own bottleneck. And no matter how fast or efficiently you work, you will never escape the treadmill. It is also important to understand the cultural component of this myth. In many environments, hard work is romanticized, suffering is glorified, sleep deprivation is worn like a badge of honor. But this mindset, while noble in spirit, is ineffective in practice. The marketplace does not compensate martyrdom. It compensates contribution, innovation, and scale. The most effective individuals in any field are not those who do everything themselves. They are those who identify what must be done and who or what can do it best, so they can focus their energy on high-leverage actions. This requires a new mindset, one that values results over reputation, one that prioritizes systems over sacrifice, and one that understands the difference between being busy and being productive. Let us now explore how this myth manifests in careers and businesses. Those who work long hours may earn incremental raises, but unless they shift their role to one of leadership, strategy, or innovation, their compensation remains tethered to hours worked. Entrepreneurs who wear every hat in their business, from marketing to fulfillment to accounting, may feel proud of their hustle, but they often plateau early because their business cannot grow beyond their personal limits. Investors who micromanage every decision without trusting their research or delegating oversight may lose the very opportunity their capital could have generated. In all of these examples, the absence of leverage ensures stagnation, not because the individual is unwilling, but because the model itself is flawed. The solution is to shift from being the machine to building the machine. This is not about doing less. It is about doing differently. It is about recognizing that the most powerful use of your energy is not in working harder, but in designing processes that work on your behalf. This may mean automating routine tasks. It may mean training others to handle roles you once managed. It may mean investing in tools or platforms that multiply your efforts. Whatever the form, the goal is the same: to free your time for high-leverage thinking, creation, and leadership. Now let us be clear, there will always be seasons of hard work. Building something meaningful requires intensity, but effort must be applied in the right direction. Digging faster is useless if you're in the wrong field. Effort without strategy is noise. Effort without systems is waste. And effort without leverage is a ceiling. We do not reject hard work. We reframe it. We direct it toward building engines of value, not just expressions of exhaustion. The goal is not to work less. It is to build something that works with or without you. As we close this chapter, consider the following. Are you being rewarded for your effort or your outcomes? Are you building something that grows or simply maintaining what exists? Are you working in a way that scales or in a way that keeps you stuck? The myth of hard work is not that work is bad, but that work on its own is enough. It is not. Only work aligned with value and multiplied by leverage leads to wealth. Chapter 4. Money has a personality. Know it. Money is often spoken about as if it were purely mechanical, a system of numbers, interest rates, budgets, and investments. And on the surface, this is true. It is quantifiable. It is countable. It is subject to rules of arithmetic and finance. But beneath the surface, money behaves more like a relationship than a machine. It is not purely rational. It is deeply emotional. To fully understand and master money, you must stop thinking of it as a static object and begin thinking of it as a responsive force. A force that behaves differently based on your beliefs, your habits, your fears, and your trust. In other words, money has a personality, and that personality mirrors your own. This chapter will examine the psychological laws that govern your financial experience, because what you believe about money will directly determine how it responds to you. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your behavior, consciously or unconsciously, are always shaping your financial reality. Let us begin with a foundational truth. Money does not exist in a vacuum. It exists within an environment, and that environment is emotional, cultural, and personal. Your financial decisions are not made in isolation. They are the product of stories, some told to you, others created by you. Stories you absorbed in childhood. Stories shaped by your culture, your religion, your family, your trauma, and those stories matter more than most people realize. Because long before you ever earned your first dollar, you were already forming beliefs about money. You were watching how your parents talked about it. You were observing whether it caused stress or freedom, conflict or confidence. And those impressions, subtle and unspoken, became internal truths. Some people grow up believing that money is scarce, dangerous, or even dirty. Others are taught that it is powerful, abundant, and accessible. These narratives become the emotional software running silently in the background of every financial decision you make. And unless you examine and rewrite these beliefs, they will shape your outcomes whether or not you are aware of them. Money then becomes deeply personal, not because it cares, but because you do. Let us now consider some of the most common money personalities and how they influence behavior. The first is the hoarder. This individual is deeply fearful of losing money. They save obsessively, avoid risks, and find discomfort in spending, even when necessary. While this personality can create short-term security, it often leads to long-term stagnation. The hoarder values control over growth, and as a result, they frequently miss opportunities that require investment, confidence, or faith in the future. The second is the spender. This individual equates money with emotion, often pleasure, status, or validation. Spending becomes a form of self-expression, reward, or even rebellion. While this can bring moments of joy, it often leads to cycles of debt, regret, and instability. The spender is often disconnected from long-term vision and instead lives in a financial present that is emotionally driven rather than strategically designed. The third personality is the avoider. This person dislikes thinking about money at all. They find financial conversations stressful or overwhelming. As a result, they often delay bills, ignore account balances, or leave investments unmanaged. Avoiders are not reckless, they are unengaged, and that disengagement leads to unintentional loss and missed opportunity. The fourth is the strategist. This personality sees money as a tool, one that can be studied, understood, and optimized. They plan, track, invest, and adjust based on data. While strategists tend to outperform financially, they may struggle with emotional flexibility or generosity. Money becomes a game, and the human aspect can be lost. None of these personalities are right or wrong. They are reflections, but they matter because without understanding your default tendencies, you cannot change your trajectory. The next truth is this: money amplifies who you already are. If you are generous, wealth will expand your generosity. If you are fearful, wealth will magnify your anxiety. If you are disciplined, wealth will reward your structure. If you are impulsive, wealth will multiply your chaos. Money does not change character, it reveals it. And if you are not financially grounded now, wealth will not stabilize you, It will simply accelerate whatever direction you are already moving. This is why financial transformation is not just a matter of income, it is a matter of identity. If you do not see yourself as a person who earns, keeps, and multiplies money, you will sabotage that process, even if temporarily successful. Your subconscious identity will always pull you back into alignment with what feels familiar, and if scarcity is familiar, you will unconsciously recreate it. The solution is not to simply work harder. It is to rewire your internal identity to match the financial outcomes you desire. This begins with awareness. You must know your defaults. You must examine your emotional triggers. You must trace the origins of your beliefs. Let us return now to the concept of personality, but apply it to money itself. Because just as you have a way of relating to money, money has a consistent way of responding to you. It reacts to certain energies. It responds to certain behaviors. It avoids confusion, and it honors clarity. Money behaves like trust. It flows to those who handle it with responsibility. It stays with those who respect it, and it withdraws from those who abuse it, ignore it, or misuse it. You would not give more trust to someone who constantly loses it. Money is no different. If you want more money, you must first demonstrate that you can manage what you already have. Track your spending, organize your income, assign every dollar a purpose, invest wisely, give intentionally, and hold yourself accountable for every financial decision you make. Money responds to leadership. It does not respond to hope alone. If you are passive with money, it will leave. If you are present with money, it will grow. This is not metaphysics. It is mechanics. The next critical element in your financial psychology is emotional neutrality. Money is not your enemy, but it is also not your savior. It is not inherently good or bad. It is a tool. Many people attach moral weight to money. They believe that wanting more of it is greedy, or that having less of it is virtuous. They associate wealth with corruption or poverty with nobility. But money has no morality. It simply magnifies what is already present. If you see money as a threat, you will avoid it. If you see it as a weapon, you will fear it. But if you see it as a resource, one that can be used to build, serve, protect, and elevate, then you can begin to treat it with the respect it deserves. You do not need to idolize money, but you do need to honor it, because until you stop resenting it, you will never receive it in abundance. Chapter 5: The Law of Exchange. At the core of every financial transaction is an exchange. It is the most fundamental concept in economics. One party offers something, a product, a service, a result, and another party offers money in return. But beneath this simple structure lies a deeper truth. Every dollar you have ever earned was the result of an exchange, whether you were conscious of it or not. You may have exchanged your time, you may have exchanged your skill, your presence, your knowledge, your leadership, or your influence. But the principle remains constant. Money is not given. It is exchanged. And the clearer you are about what you are offering in that exchange, the more money you are able to attract, retain, and grow. In this chapter, we will examine the law of exchange in its clearest form. We will analyze what makes certain exchanges profitable, others limited, and some outright destructive. We will look at how the value you offer is perceived, packaged, and priced. And we will explain why financial freedom is not the result of random opportunity, but the strategic mastery of exchange. To begin, let us define the law. The law of exchange states that all wealth is the result of value being traded, fairly or unfairly, between two or more parties. This means that every financial interaction is part of a value chain, and the person who controls more of that value chain tends to accumulate more wealth. Let us take an example. Consider a business owner. They hire an employee and pay them a fixed salary. The employee completes tasks, serves customers, creates output. But the business owner is the one who receives the payments from clients. Why? Because the business owner structured the entire exchange. They manage the marketing, the systems, the brand, the client relationships. They are not just participating in the exchange, they are designing it. This is a critical distinction. There are three roles in every exchange: The participant, the controller, and the architect. Participants trade their time for money. Controllers manage transactions and systems. Architects create platforms where many transactions occur, often without their direct involvement. Most people remain participants their entire lives. They work hourly jobs, receive salaries, and hope for bonuses. They are dependent on systems they did not create. The financially free, however, move up the ladder. They build systems, hire participants, and shape the terms of exchange in their favor. The shift from participant to architect is the shift from income to wealth. But to rise through these roles, you must understand what gives value in an exchange. There are 4 key elements. Key: relevance. Are you solving a real, urgent problem? Uniqueness. Can you offer something others cannot easily replicate? Trust. Do others believe you can and will deliver? Leverage. Can your solution scale beyond your own effort? Let's explore each. Relevance is about timing. No matter how talented you are, if the problem you solve is not immediate or meaningful to your audience, they will not exchange money with you. Money moves toward urgency. If you can relieve pain, unlock growth, or remove obstacles quickly, you become relevant, and relevance gets paid. Uniqueness is what separates you from competition. This could be your voice, your perspective, your methodology, or your brand. In markets crowded with options, uniqueness commands attention, and attention is a form of capital. Trust is what turns attention into transaction. You can be relevant and unique, but if people don't trust you, they will not buy from you. Trust is built through consistency, credibility, results, and integrity. Finally, leverage allows your solution to serve more people with less effort. A coach who sees 10 clients a week has limited income. A coach who builds a course, or a community, or software can serve 1,000. Combine all 4, and you create high-value exchanges that scale. Miss any one, and your growth will be limited. Let us now address a common misconception: that pricing is the most important element in an exchange. It is not. Pricing is merely a reflection of perceived value. If someone believes what you offer will create more benefit than the cost, they will buy, regardless of the price point. This is why some consultants charge $100 an hour, while others charge $10,000 for a single conversation. The difference is not time. It is perceived impact, and perceived impact is shaped by how well you communicate, position, and deliver your value. You are not paid for your product or your time. You are paid for the outcome you create and how clearly that outcome is understood and desired. This means your ability to articulate your value is just as important as your ability to deliver it. If you cannot explain why your offer matters, it will not matter financially. This principle holds true in jobs, businesses, and investments alike. Let us examine exchange in the context of employment. Most people trade time for a paycheck, but what they are really trading is their ability to solve a specific problem reliably under the structure of a company. If you want to increase your income as an employee, do not simply ask for more money. Ask yourself, what higher value problem can I solve? Can I reduce costs, increase revenue, improve systems? Can I become a person the organization cannot afford to lose? When your perceived value exceeds your current compensation, your leverage improves, and your ability to renegotiate increases. Conversely, if your role can be easily automated, outsourced, or replaced, your position in the exchange weakens. This is not cruelty, it is structure, and once you understand the structure, you can change your strategy. Now let's look at exchange through the lens of entrepreneurship. In business, your product is only one piece of the equation. Your real asset is the system of exchange you've built. How people find you, trust you, purchase from you, and return again. The stronger and smoother that system, the more wealth you generate, because it allows you to serve more people with less friction. Amazon is not simply a retailer, it is a master of exchange systems, speed, trust, convenience. And as a result, it dominates not just through pricing, but through process. Every successful business, large or small, understands this principle. Revenue is a reflection of how well you've engineered the exchange. Finally, let us apply the law of exchange to wealth building. Wealth is not built by accumulation alone, but by strategic exchange over time. Investing is the act of exchanging capital today for multiplied capital tomorrow. Done correctly, it is the most efficient form of exchange because it uses money to earn money rather than labor. But even investing requires clarity. What are you exchanging for this return? Are you exchanging security for volatility? Are you exchanging control for compounding? Are you exchanging liquidity for long-term growth? Each decision in your financial life is a trade. Understanding that is what separates investors from gamblers. If you exchange impulsively, emotionally, or unconsciously, you lose. If you exchange strategically, intentionally, and intelligently, you win. This is the law. It is neither personal nor emotional. It is structural, and it applies to everyone, regardless of income, background, or ambition. Let us conclude this chapter with a simple but powerful realization. You are always in exchange. Every day you're trading time for results, energy for opportunity, attention for information, dollars for value. The question is not whether you're exchanging, but whether you're exchanging well. Are your trades aligned with your goals? Are you receiving more value than you're giving, or less? Are you growing through your exchanges or shrinking? Once you begin to master the law of exchange, money stops feeling elusive. It becomes predictable. It becomes responsive. It becomes structured. And from that structure, wealth begins to grow, not randomly, but reliably. Chapter 6. Attention is the new currency. In previous generations, wealth was often determined by access to land, labor, or capital. Those who controlled physical resources held the keys to economic power. But in the modern digital economy, a new form of capital has emerged, one that determines influence, income, and opportunity at a scale unimaginable a century ago. That capital is attention. We live in an age where information is abundant, but focus is scarce, where people carry access to the entire world in the palm of their hand, and yet rarely give sustained focus to anything for more than a few seconds. And in this environment, attention, the ability to capture and hold someone's mental presence, has become one of the most valuable assets on Earth. This chapter will explore why attention is the currency of the modern economy, how it functions, and why those who understand how to ethically attract and sustain it are now creating unprecedented wealth, often without traditional credentials, resources, or institutional backing. We will also examine the responsibility that comes with holding attention and how to turn attention not merely into influence, but into lasting value. Let us begin with a principle that governs all digital and physical marketplaces today. If no one knows you exist, they cannot pay you. This statement is deceptively simple, but it contains the core truth of modern economics. Visibility precedes value. No matter how skilled, how talented, or how knowledgeable you are, if you are invisible, you cannot be compensated. Attention, therefore, becomes the gateway to all financial exchange. It is the starting point for every customer relationship, every sale, every hire, every investment. And because attention is now distributed globally and rapidly through digital networks, those who know how to gain attention are no longer bound by geography, industry, or even traditional social hierarchy. They operate in a different economy entirely. Let us now define attention more precisely. Attention is not simply being seen. It is being remembered. It is the ability to stand out amid noise, to hold interest, and to be perceived as relevant. In financial terms, attention is top-of-mind real estate. If you occupy someone's awareness when a decision must be made, whether to hire, buy, subscribe, or invest, you have earned positioning. And positioning in the attention economy is power. Attention has three key qualities that define its value. Its scarcity. People only have so much of it. Transferability. It can be directed, shared, and scaled. Monetizability. It can be converted into transactions, trust, and capital. Let us examine each. First, scarcity. The average human today is bombarded with thousands of messages per day, advertisements, emails, posts, alerts. In such an environment, attention becomes more precious than ever. This means earning it is difficult, but it also means that once earned, it is extremely valuable. People do not give their focus freely, they give it to what matters to them. And if you consistently occupy that space, you are no longer just visible, you are relevant. Second, transferability. Attention is not static, it can be redirected. A trusted source can point their audience toward a brand, a product, or a person. This is why endorsements, influencers, and viral content have such immediate impact. Attention can move, and when leveraged correctly, it can scale exponentially. Third, monetizability. Attention alone is not wealth, but attention, when connected to value, becomes profitable. The person who knows how to capture attention and deliver substance is the one who wins in the long term. This is why strategy matters. Attention without purpose becomes distraction, but attention channeled toward meaningful exchange becomes revenue, impact, and growth. Let us now consider how attention functions in business. Every successful business has mastered 3 stages of attention: acquisition, retention, and conversion. Acquisition is getting noticed, retention is being remembered, conversion is being trusted enough to be paid. A brand that is seen once and forgotten has acquired but not retained. A brand that is followed but never purchased from has retained but not converted. The goal is not simply to be seen. It is to move people from awareness to belief to action. This is the new pipeline of wealth. Consider social media. It has democratized access to attention. Anyone from any background can publish content, attract followers, and build a platform. But those who succeed long-term are not those who shout the loudest. They are those who provide the most consistent value. Because attention without value is noise, and in the modern economy, noise is filtered. Let us now apply this principle to individuals. If you are seeking a promotion, a client, an investment, or an opportunity, you must be remembered. And to be remembered, you must differentiate. Differentiation does not always mean being the best. It means being the clearest, the most relevant, the most aligned with the needs of the person whose attention you seek. In a room full of talent, the person who speaks with clarity will be chosen, because clarity cuts through confusion and attention is drawn to what feels certain. This is why communication is such a critical skill in the attention economy. It is not just what you know, but how you express it. Your ability to teach, explain, persuade, and lead through voice, writing, and presence becomes a financial asset. In short, if you cannot communicate, you cannot convert attention into capital. Now let us consider the ethical implications of attention. Attention is influence, and influence is power. Those who hold attention, whether through media, politics, education, or branding, carry responsibility. Because attention can be used to inspire or to manipulate, to educate or to exploit, to build truth or to manufacture illusion. And the marketplace, though often efficient, does not always reward morality, which is why self-governance matters. The goal is not to capture attention at any cost. The goal is to attract it through integrity, serve it with excellence, and convert it into value for everyone involved. Because the long-term game is not built on clicks. It is built on trust, and trust compounds far more powerfully than hype. Those who abuse attention may succeed quickly, but they fail eventually. Because attention can be taken as fast as it is given. But those who build with purpose, deliver with consistency, and lead with character hold attention for decades. Let us now return to the financial principle. In today's world, attention is the entry point to wealth. Whether you are selling a product, offering a service, publishing ideas, or leading a team, your success will be determined in large part by your ability to be seen and remembered. This does not mean you must become a celebrity, but it does mean you must become visible. You must make your value clear. You must position yourself in a way that your target audience, employer, client, partner, investor can find you, understand you, and trust you, because the world cannot reward what it cannot see. To conclude this chapter, consider these questions. These questions. Where in your life are you visible, and where are you invisible? Are you actively earning attention or waiting to be discovered? Is your value communicated clearly, or is it hidden behind complexity or insecurity? When people encounter you or your work, do they remember it? Do they share it? Do they return? Attention is no longer optional. It is not reserved for marketers or public figures. It is the gateway currency of your career, your brand, and your legacy. If you wish to increase your income, begin by increasing the clarity, consistency, and quality of your presence. The world is watching, but only briefly. What you do with those few seconds of focus determines everything that follows. Chapter 7: The Wealth Equation. They never taught you. Most people were taught that wealth is a simple equation. Earn more than you spend, and over time, you will become financially free. On the surface, this principle appears reasonable. After all, saving money is better than spending recklessly. Living within one's means is considered responsible. And certainly, managing expenses is a key part of any financial strategy. But when viewed through the lens of wealth creation, this formula is not only incomplete, it is fundamentally flawed. The problem lies not in the principle of discipline, but in the assumption that wealth is a linear accumulation process. That if you simply save diligently and work hard over time, you will eventually be free. But true wealth, sustainable, expansive, scalable wealth, does not follow that path. It is not the result of linear effort, nor of incremental savings. It is built through leverage, scale, through systems that multiply value independently of time. This chapter is about that equation, the one they never taught you in school, the one few parents knew how to explain, the one rarely discussed in financial education, or even in business environments. It is the wealth equation that underlies every fortune, that drives every leap in income, that separates those who earn for a living from those who build legacies. And it begins with one simple truth: income minus expenses is not enough. That formula, income minus expenses, leads to survival. It leads to budgeting, to saving, to avoiding debt, to protecting what little one has. It is useful if the goal is stability, but it is insufficient if the goal is independence, because it frames wealth as something you protect, not something you grow. It assumes that wealth is found in limitation rather than in creation. To understand the real equation, you must shift your thinking. You must stop seeing money as a reward for hours worked, and start seeing it as the result of systems deployed. You must stop thinking in terms of income and start thinking in terms of multiplication. The wealthy do not ask, "How can I save more?" They ask, "How can I create more?" Not create more effort, but more output. Not work more hours, but generate more impact. The modern wealth equation has three core elements. First is value, which is the problem you solve and the usefulness you bring to others. Second is leverage, which is the degree to which your value can be scaled, distributed, or automated. Third is time, which becomes the environment in which value and leverage compound. When these three forces are aligned, wealth creation moves from linear to exponential. When they are not, no amount of saving or budgeting will compensate for the lack of structural power. Imagine two individuals, both earn $50,000 per year. The first saves diligently, sets aside a portion of income each month, and avoids unnecessary expenses. The second also manages spending, but instead of only saving, they build a small product, perhaps a digital course, a licensing system, or a subscription service. They launch it quietly, serve 10 customers, then 100. They automate it, optimize it, and over time, it begins to earn while they sleep. After a few years, their income has multiplied, not because they worked more, but because they leveraged systems. They applied time to a model that could grow in their absence. This is how wealth behaves. It does not simply respond to discipline. It responds to design. And the best designed wealth systems obey the laws of scale. They separate income from effort. They reward structure over hustle. They rely not on perfection but on repeatable processes. This is the difference between working in your finances and working on them. The former earns you a paycheck. The latter builds you a future. It is here that many people stumble, because they have been conditioned to associate wealth with labor, to believe that if they are not exhausted, they are not progressing. This is a relic of industrial age thinking, where output was tied directly to physical presence. But in the knowledge economy, the most valuable assets are intangible: intellectual property, systems, networks, audience, and capital. These assets do not tire, they do not sleep. They continue producing long after the work is complete. The wealth equation, then, is this: wealth equals value, multiplied by leverage, multiplied by time. Each component plays a role. Value is what you bring to the world. Leverage is how that value is delivered and scaled. Time is the environment that allows the other two to compound. If any one of these variables is zero, the outcome is zero. But when all three are activated, the result is exponential. This is why simply increasing income is not the answer. Many people earn high incomes and remain trapped in financial stress because their income is tied to their presence. Their systems are fragile. Their money does not work for them. They must constantly work for it. Wealth, in contrast, is about detachment. It is about building streams that flow without constant attention, not passive, in the sense of disengaged, but leveraged, in the sense of designed to continue regardless of your availability. If you want to change your financial life, do not begin by asking how you can save more. Begin by asking how you can increase the value you offer, expand the reach of that value, and allow time to multiply it. Saving has a ceiling. Leverage does not. Budgeting is useful, but only within a system that is growing. Otherwise, you are managing scarcity. Wealth is built by managing abundance. This brings us to another critical insight: the role of delayed gratification. In a leveraged system, the rewards often come later. You may spend weeks or months building a product, writing a book, developing a platform, or investing in a portfolio, with no immediate return. But once that structure is built, it continues to produce. The modern financial landscape rewards those who can wait, not those who delay endlessly, but those who plant seeds knowing the harvest will come. This requires a mindset shift. It requires trading the illusion of fast money for the power of slow growth. It requires seeing time not as a constraint, but as a multiplier. Most people underestimate what they can build in 5 years because they are so focused on what they can earn this month. But wealth is patient. It rewards those who build with discipline and allow systems to work. Let us consider the case of investment. An investor is someone who exchanges money today for multiplied money tomorrow. But the best investors do not simply pick stocks or properties. They understand that what they are truly investing in is a system, one where capital, structure, and time intersect. A business can be an investment. A personal brand can be an investment. Even a habit, properly nurtured, can become an investment. What matters is not the category, but the equation: value multiplied by leverage, multiplied by time. Once this equation becomes clear, the strategies follow. You begin to look at every action through a different lens. You ask, does this scale? Can this be automated? Will this continue growing when I step away? You move from operator to designer, from worker to builder. You begin to see your life not as a series of tasks, but as a system, and systems can be optimized, delegated, scaled. This does not mean you stop working. It means you stop relying on effort alone. It means you create assets that work for you, so that your energy is multiplied, not consumed. It means you build something that does not end when you stop. Because true freedom is not having more money. It is having money that continues to grow without your direct presence. At this point, you must also confront the trade-offs. Building systems requires effort, sacrifice, and delayed comfort. It requires stepping out of reactive living and into intentional design. But the reward is not just financial, it is psychological. You reclaim control, you build confidence. You escape the cycle of always needing to earn, because you have built something that earns with or without you. This is the hidden advantage of the wealthy. They do not spend their lives chasing money. They build environments where money is produced, systematically, predictably, consistently. They understand that wealth is not just about what you do. It is about what you set in motion, what you own, what you lead, what you automate. They are not working harder. They are working with better equations. Let us close with a question. What system are you building? Not what job do you have, not what income do you earn, but what structure exists in your life that multiplies value in your absence. What have you created that produces outcomes when you're not present? Where have you deployed leverage, and where are you still operating as a worker, not a builder? The answers to these questions define your financial future more than any budget ever will. Because until you build a system, you will always be the system. Until you create something that works, you will always be the one who must work. The good news is this: wealth is not a mystery. It is a design problem. And now you know the equation. Chapter 8. Speed over perfection. In the pursuit of wealth, many individuals delay action in the name of preparation. They refine, they research, they wait. They tell themselves that once everything is polished, everything is certain, everything is risk-free, then they will begin. This tendency is often mistaken for responsibility. In truth, it is often fear disguised as planning. In today's economy, perfection is not the highest virtue. Speed, the ability to move decisively, to launch early, to enter the market before every detail is resolved. This has become one of the most powerful advantages a person can develop, because in a rapidly evolving world, the window of opportunity rarely stays open long enough for perfection to arrive. This chapter will explore why speed, not flawless execution, is the primary driver of financial momentum. We will examine why waiting to be ready is often a form of self-sabotage, how the market rewards early action, and why those who learn in motion consistently outperform those who wait to learn before moving. In short, we will uncover why wealth follows speed, and why perfection for most people is the enemy of prosperity. Let us begin by defining speed, not as haste or recklessness, but as responsiveness. Speed is the capacity to identify opportunity and act on it quickly. It is the discipline of momentum, not chaos. It means that when you receive insight, you apply it. When you discover demand, you meet it. When you make a decision, you move on it. Speed is not sloppy. It is strategic. The most financially successful individuals and companies today do not wait until everything is proven. They iterate in public. They launch early versions. They refine while operating. Their first product is rarely their best, but it is the product that taught them how to improve. They understand that the fastest way to learn what works is to put something into the world and observe how it performs. The market is a better teacher than theory. This mindset is difficult for those who are taught to avoid failure at all costs. Traditional education rewards correctness, not boldness. It teaches students to withhold answers until they are confident. But wealth is not earned through correctness. It is earned through relevance, responsiveness, and refinement. The market does not demand perfection. It demands usefulness, timeliness, and trust. And trust is built not on flawless execution, but on consistent delivery. Let us consider an entrepreneur. One path says, do not launch until the branding is perfect, the website flawless, the pricing airtight, the testimonials abundant. This entrepreneur may spend a year preparing and never ship a product. Another entrepreneur with a basic version begins building relationships with real customers, collects feedback, solves problems, and improves with each iteration. 6 months later, the second entrepreneur has revenue, momentum, and clarity. The first has theory. The difference is speed. In financial terms, speed compounds. Every day you delay action is not neutral. It is a cost. It is the cost of missed learning, missed visibility, missed growth. It is the loss of potential income, the delay of brand recognition, the deferral of customer trust, and most dangerously, it becomes a habit. The longer you wait to begin, the harder it becomes to begin at all. Perfection is not just expensive, it is paralyzing. There is a misconception that speed means lowering standards, that acting quickly means compromising on quality. But in reality, speed and excellence can coexist when approached correctly. Excellence means delivering value. It does not require a delay. It does not demand flawlessness. It requires care, intention, and follow-through. Speed simply means that those values are applied now, not eventually. Speed also increases feedback. The sooner you move, the sooner the world tells you what it needs. The sooner you offer a service, the sooner you find out what is unclear. The sooner you publish your work, the sooner you discover what resonates. Feedback is the currency of growth, and speed accelerates its accumulation. Those who wait for perfect conditions miss the data that only real-world testing can provide. This applies to more than just business. In careers, those who act early on opportunities, who speak up, apply, pivot, or build new skills without waiting for certainty, rise faster. In investing, those who start small and stay consistent outperform those who try to time the market perfectly. In relationships, those who communicate early and often build stronger trust than those who wait until the moment is ideal. Speed multiplies progress in every area of life. There is a law here. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. Most people believe they must first feel certain before they move. But in truth, movement itself creates certainty. It is only by acting that we begin to understand what we are capable of, what the world responds to, and what needs to change. Clarity is earned, and it is earned in motion. This is why the wealthiest individuals and organizations prioritize shipping over perfection. They do not let planning become procrastination. They do not let uncertainty become paralysis. They understand that the market will shape the product more accurately than imagination ever could. They design, launch, learn, and adjust, and they do so faster than their competition. Speed also has emotional power. When you act quickly, you reinforce self-trust. You prove to yourself that you can respond, that you do not need permission, that you are capable of navigating the unknown. Every rapid decision builds internal confidence. Every small step reinforces motion, and motion is the foundation of momentum. Momentum, in turn, creates the perception of inevitability, and in the marketplace, perceived inevitability is influence. Perfection, by contrast, breeds doubt. The more time you spend editing, adjusting, refining without release, the more pressure builds. You begin to believe the product must be flawless. You fear judgment. You avoid exposure. What began as excellence becomes avoidance. What began as craftsmanship becomes fear. This cycle delays not only progress, but fulfillment, because nothing feels as satisfying as completion. If you are building something, launch the first version. If you have an idea, begin the draft. If you see a need, offer the solution. Do it before you feel ready. Do it before every piece is perfect. Do it because doing it imperfectly is what makes you better. No one becomes great without iteration. No one becomes wealthy by waiting. Let us return to the numbers. Time is a multiplier. When you act today, the effects of that action can compound over months and years. A business launched today, even in simple form, builds a year of momentum that cannot be recovered if delayed. An investment made now, even if small, begins the clock of compound growth. A conversation started now opens the door to a future connection. Speed sets the compounding machine in motion. Even in systems design, speed has value. A fast feedback loop allows you to make adjustments before resources are wasted. A slow loop results in misalignment, inefficiency, and lost capital. Startups that launch quickly fail faster, but they also succeed faster. They gather data, attract users, and iterate their way to market fit. Those who try to predict every outcome in advance fall behind those who let the real world inform their decisions. Speed is not about recklessness, it is about tempo. It is about not allowing the desire for certainty to override the opportunity for growth. It is about giving yourself permission to evolve publicly, to lead visibly, to adjust in the open. It requires humility, but it builds mastery. Let us also acknowledge this truth. People trust those who move. When others see you taking action, they feel pulled toward you. They want to be associated with progress. They trust momentum more than credentials, and speed, when coupled with integrity, becomes magnetic because it signals confidence, it signals leadership, it signals belief. When you move quickly, you change your environment, you shift your energy, you open doors. People begin to pay attention. The world does not respond to potential. It responds to movement. Waiting is invisible. Motion is magnetic. To be clear, there is a time for refinement, but it must come after release. You cannot improve what does not exist. Perfection is a process, not a prerequisite. The mistake is believing you must get it right before you begin. The truth is, you begin to get it right once you begin. Let us now address the fear, because fear is often the real reason people delay. Fear of failure, of judgment, of being seen before they are fully prepared. But fear is not the signal to stop. It is the signal to move. The presence of fear is not a reason to wait. It is proof that the moment matters, that the risk is real, and therefore so is the reward. The greatest breakthroughs in business and in life do not come from comfort. They come from courageous action, and courage, by definition, requires risk. Wealth follows the bold, not the reckless, but the willing. Those who are willing to ship, to serve, to show up before the applause begins. Wealth, then, is not the result of perfection. It is the reward for those who act before they are entirely ready, for those who understand that speed creates visibility, trust, feedback, and growth, for those who move forward, even while refining, for those who know that the first step is never the final version, but it is the only way to reach it. As we conclude this chapter, ask yourself this: where have you been waiting for permission? Where has perfection become your excuse? What would change if you moved now, imperfectly, but decisively? The market will not wait for you. The opportunity will not hold its place. But your courage is enough. Your willingness is enough. And your action, even today, can change everything. Chapter 9. The Silent Power of Ownership. Among all the quiet differences between those who earn money and those who build wealth, there is one distinction so fundamental, so quietly powerful, that it shapes the entire trajectory of a financial life. That difference is ownership. Ownership is not simply a legal status or a name on a document. It is an economic position, a structural advantage, and an invisible multiplier. It determines who controls the flow of money, who benefits from compounding growth, and who is positioned to earn not just once, but over and over, long after the original work is complete. This chapter will explore the true power of ownership, not just in the legal sense, but in the financial and psychological realms as well. We will examine how ownership changes income dynamics, why the wealthy prioritize assets over activity, and how the shift from earner to owner begins with a shift in mindset long before it appears on paper. To understand money is to understand ownership, and to build lasting wealth, one must eventually stop selling time and start acquiring things that grow in value. Let us begin with a simple truth: owners get paid differently. The employee works for a salary, the contractor works for a fee, the freelancer works for a project. These roles all require time, effort, and presence, and when the work ends, so does the income. But the owner, whether of a business, a brand, intellectual property, real estate, or equity, is not paid for showing up. The owner is paid for owning the system that produces. In every economic structure, the owner receives profits. The worker receives wages. The difference is not always about skill or contribution. It is about position. Ownership is leverage. It allows you to benefit from the efforts of others, from systems you have created, and from the appreciation of assets over time. It removes the ceiling that time imposes. While time is limited, ownership can scale without limit. This is why the wealthy acquire assets, not just for prestige or security, but because assets pay them even when they are not present. A song that continues to earn royalties, a book that sells year after year, a business that generates revenue through systems, a rental property that produces cash flow monthly, a stock portfolio that appreciates in value. These are not just possessions, they are positions. They are wealth machines. Ownership changes how you see the world. Once you begin to understand its power, you stop asking how much does it pay and begin asking, what do I get to keep? The question shifts from income to equity, from labor to leverage, from participation to control. Because control is the quiet engine behind financial freedom, let us consider two professionals. Both are experts in their field. One works as a consultant, charging hourly rates, managing multiple clients, and earning well. The other creates a framework, publishes it as a course, licenses it to organizations, and begins collecting income from distribution rather than direct service. Over time, the second individual earns more, not because they are more skilled, but because they own the product, they own the system, they own the means of production. This principle scales in every industry, from media to manufacturing to medicine. Those who own the process earn more than those who perform the process. Not because they are more deserving, but because they are positioned differently. And in economics, position matters more than intention. The path to ownership begins with awareness. Most people never consider it. They follow the script: earn, spend, repeat. Ownership is reserved, they believe, for entrepreneurs, for the wealthy, for someone else. But ownership is not reserved. It is claimed. It is created. It is built, one decision at a time. It begins when you stop seeing your job as your security and start seeing your skills as your asset. When you stop thinking about your paycheck and start thinking about your intellectual property. When you stop consuming and start creating. It begins when you ask, not how can I earn more this month, but how can I build something that pays me next year? Ownership does not always require a business. It does not always require a large capital. It begins with something as small as retaining the rights to your work, creating your own brand instead of working under someone else's, investing in assets rather than only spending on liabilities. Ownership is a posture. It is the refusal to give away the upside of your labor in exchange for temporary comfort. This is why the wealth gap is not only about income, it is about asset ownership. Two families may earn the same salary, but the one who owns property, investments, or a stake in a business will accumulate wealth. The other will not. Income funds lifestyle. Ownership funds legacy. In the digital age, ownership opportunities have expanded. You can own a brand, a platform, a channel, a community. You can create intellectual property once and distribute it endlessly. You can build a following, license a product, automate a store. These are not pipe dreams. These are accessible paths, but only to those who understand that ownership is the real game. This is also why the wealthy are obsessed with equity. In negotiations, they ask for a share. In deals, they focus on percentage, not just payment, because they know that real wealth is built not from what you earn, but from what continues earning for you. And what continues earning is almost always something you own. Let us also speak of control, because ownership is not just about income, it is about decision-making. Owners decide what to build, where to move, how to operate. They are not waiting for permission. They are not dependent on approval. This autonomy is not simply financial, it is psychological. Ownership creates agency, and agency creates confidence. This confidence is often mistaken for arrogance, but it is not rooted in ego. It is rooted in freedom, the freedom to walk away, the freedom to innovate, the freedom to take risks without asking for clearance. Because when you own the structure, you define the rule. But let us be clear, ownership comes with responsibility. To own something is to be accountable for its outcomes. It is easier in some ways to be an employee, to be told what to do, to avoid the burden of failure. But the rewards of ownership come precisely because of that responsibility. Those who carry it are compensated not just for what they do, but for what they steward. This is why ownership builds not only wealth, but character. It requires discipline. It requires vision. It requires the willingness to invest in something that may not pay off immediately. But the trade is worth it, because when it works, it continues working. When it grows without your effort. Ownership is scalable in a way that labor never will be. So how do you begin to own? You begin by shifting your focus. Stop thinking only about income. Start thinking about assets. Ask, what can I build? What can I license? What can I automate? What can I package? What can I invest in, not just financially, but creatively? What can I produce that I do not have to sell twice? You begin by saying no to trading time for money whenever possible, and yes, to creating things that last. You begin by protecting your rights, your brand, your content, your contracts. You begin by seeking equity in your collaborations. You stop giving everything away. You start keeping something for yourself. This does not mean you stop earning. It means you earn differently. You think in terms of stakes, not salaries. You prioritize sustainability over speed. You build what others will one day depend on, because the world is not changed by workers. It is changed by builders. And what the builders have in common is ownership. They do not just participate in the system, they own part of it. That is why they are paid differently. That is why their wealth lasts. That is why their time is free. Ownership is not always loud. It is not always visible, but it is always powerful. It moves beneath the surface. It accumulates quietly. It compounds. And in time, it separates those who survive from those who thrive. Chapter 10. The cost of staying comfortable. Most people do not make financial decisions based on logic. They make them based on comfort. They do not choose opportunities by evaluating return on investment or potential for leverage. They choose based on what feels safe, familiar, and controllable. The human tendency toward comfort is natural, but when left unexamined, it becomes one of the most expensive habits a person can carry. This chapter is not about recklessness or unnecessary risk. It is not a call to abandon stability. Rather, it is an invitation to see comfort not as a neutral space, but as a cost, because it has one. And for many, that cost is their financial future. Comfort feels good in the moment. It soothes anxiety. It reduces pressure. But comfort does not build wealth. Challenge does. Discomfort does. Uncertainty, when paired with strategic thinking, is the environment where every fortune begins. The cost of staying comfortable is measured in opportunity lost, in potential ignored, in talent left undeveloped. It is measured in the businesses never started, the investments never made, the relationships never pursued, and the ideas that remain dormant because moving forward would have meant leaving the safety of what was known. The irony is that the pursuit of comfort often leads to long-term discomfort. The person who refuses to learn new skills because it is difficult finds themselves obsolete. The employee who never negotiates salary for fear of confrontation remains underpaid for decades. The entrepreneur who never launches because the brand isn't perfect watches others gain market share. In every case, the decision to stay comfortable carries a hidden price. Comfort is not the absence of challenge. It is the presence of predictability. It creates an illusion of control, and that illusion is seductive. But it is just that, an illusion. Because the world is always changing. Markets shift. Jobs evolve. Technology moves forward. And those who build their lives around maintaining the status quo are not protecting themselves. They are quietly falling behind. Let us examine this in financial terms. The person who keeps all their savings in a low-interest account because investing feels risky is losing money to inflation each year. They are preserving comfort but sacrificing purchasing power. The business owner who refuses to delegate because it feels safer to do everything alone limits their growth. The decision feels efficient, but it is expensive. The aspiring investor who never begins because they do not feel ready is watching years of potential compounding disappear, and time once lost cannot be recovered. This is not theoretical. It is measurable. It is the opportunity cost of inaction, the cost of staying exactly where you are. It is what you trade, unconsciously, when you choose comfort over courage, and it is happening every day in small choices. In saying no to the event that could have changed your network, in ignoring the financial course that could have reshaped your understanding, in avoiding the hard conversation that could have restructured your compensation. There is a psychological term for this: loss aversion. It is the tendency to fear losing what we have more than we desire, gaining something new, and it is one of the most powerful drivers behind comfort-seeking behavior. But what most people do not realize is that by clinging to what is, they often forfeit what could be. By protecting comfort today, they sacrifice freedom tomorrow. This is why so many people remain stuck financially, not because they lack information or ability, but because they are emotionally tethered to a familiar version of themselves. They are afraid to outgrow their surroundings, to question what they've been taught, to disrupt their routines. But wealth requires disruption, not recklessness, not chaos, but intentional disruption, the kind that says, if I want something different, I must move differently. Growth lives at the edge of discomfort. Every financial breakthrough, earning more, investing smarter, building a business, scaling a system, requires discomfort. It requires doing what you have not done before, speaking in ways you have not spoken, thinking at levels you have not previously accessed. There is no way to grow without shedding layers of who you used to be. Let us be clear, discomfort is not danger, it is unfamiliarity. And there is a difference. Danger harms you, discomfort expands you, it stretches your capacity, it introduces you to capabilities you did not know you had. Those who become wealthy are not immune to discomfort, they are simply more willing to experience it in pursuit of a larger vision. In fact, they learn to associate discomfort with growth. They see it as a signal that they are evolving. They understand that short-term discomfort is the entry fee to long-term financial freedom. They know that every time they step into uncertainty, they are buying a chance at something bigger than safety. They are buying a chance at sovereignty. Comfort, on the other hand, is a closed system. It reinforces itself. The more you choose it, the smaller your world becomes. You build routines that reinforce your current income, your current thinking, your current limitations. And eventually, you stop imagining anything else. You stop dreaming, not because you lack ambition, but because you've trained yourself to avoid the discomfort of reinvention. This is the real danger, not discomfort itself, but the slow erosion of your willingness to pursue anything that requires it. Because once that happens, wealth is no longer possible. Not because the opportunity is gone, but because your capacity to reach for it has atrophied. Let us now address a deeper layer, the emotional comfort of identity. Many people remain poor, not because they love poverty, but because they are emotionally attached to the version of themselves that struggles. It is familiar. It is socially accepted. It is safe to be the person who is trying, who is doing their best, who is making it work. To move beyond that would mean losing the comfort of that narrative, and that loss is terrifying. This is why wealth is not just a financial shift. It is an identity shift. To become wealthy, you must be willing to let go of the version of you who was. You must outgrow the excuses, the stories, the labels. You must become someone new, someone who sees discomfort not as an obstacle, but as an invitation. You must also become willing to be misunderstood, to be criticized, to be doubted, because stepping into a new financial reality often threatens those who are still committed to comfort. They will question your decisions. They will warn you. They will project their fears onto you. And if you are not grounded in your vision, you will let their comfort trap become yours. But you are not here to stay comfortable. You are here to grow, to build, to change your financial destiny. And that will always require discomfort. It will require failing in public, learning quickly, taking risks, making decisions before you feel ready, speaking up, standing out, saying no to what no longer aligns, saying yes before you feel qualified. This is not the easy path, but it is the real one, and it leads somewhere that comfort never will. It leads to agency, to expansion, to a life where you are no longer limited by your past patterns, but empowered by your future vision. So ask yourself, where have you chosen comfort over courage? Where have you allowed familiarity to dictate your future? What would happen if, instead of avoiding discomfort, you leaned into it? What would open up if you saw discomfort as a doorway, not a wall? What you will discover is this: discomfort is temporary, but the rewards it brings, confidence, capability, clarity, and wealth, those are permanent. You only have to walk through the threshold once. And on the other side, the life you were meant to live begins. Chapter 11. Money Talks. And it's always honest. There is a reason money is so often misunderstood. It is not because it lies. In fact, money is one of the most honest forces in the world. It does not flatter. It does not manipulate. It does not comfort. It reveals. It mirrors what we value, how we behave, and what we believe. If you want to know what someone truly prioritizes, do not ask them. Look at how they spend. Look at how they earn. Look at how they treat what they have. In this chapter, we examine money not as an object, but as a form of language, one that speaks clearly, consistently, and without apology. Money does not respond to your intentions. It responds to your actions. It does not care what you say you believe. It responds to what you prove through decisions. And if you learn to listen to it, not emotionally, but objectively, it will tell you everything you need to know about where you are, why you are there, and what needs to change. People often speak of money as if it is cruel, as if it punishes the good and rewards the corrupt. But money is not moral or immoral. It is neutral. It simply amplifies what already exists. It gives more reach to those who create. It expands the habits of those who spend. It multiplies the direction you are already heading in. That is why money is not the problem. Misunderstanding it is. When you treat money as a friend, it will reveal its patterns. It will show you with precision where your fears are hiding. If you spend recklessly, it is not because you lack discipline. It is often because you are buying identity, approval, or emotional anesthesia. If you hoard money but never invest, it is not just caution. It is often a symptom of deeper scarcity, of a fear that no amount will ever be enough. If you avoid tracking your finances, it is not forgetfulness, it is avoidance, and avoidance always has a cost. Money talks in patterns, and those patterns are consistent. They are present in your statements, your investments, your habits, your subscriptions, your tipping, your debts, your delays. Money tells a story, and it is your responsibility to read it, because the numbers do not lie. They simply reflect. If you are behind, money tells you so. If you are advancing, money affirms it. If you are stuck, money shows you exactly where you are stuck, not emotionally, but mathematically. The problem is not that money is silent, it is that most people refuse to listen to what it's saying. They personalize it. They feel shame. They attach worth to the number in the account. But money is not a verdict. It is a reflection, and like any reflection, it can be changed, but only if you stop avoiding the mirror. To understand what money is saying, you must first be willing to observe without emotion. Review your last month of transactions. Where did your money go? Who benefited from your choices? What did you prioritize without realizing it? What did you delay or ignore? These are not judgments, they are signals. And the more you study them, the more fluent you become in the language of money. Many people say, "I don't care about money," but their behavior tells another story. If you avoid conversations about pricing, if you get anxious at the register, if you argue over expenses, if you chase every discount, you do care. Deeply, but not strategically. You are responding emotionally to something that must be addressed rationally. Money is not a feeling, it is a system. When people feel disempowered by money, it is not usually because of income. It is because of clarity. They do not know where it is going. They do not know what they own. They do not know what they own. They are hoping, guessing, and surviving. And hope is not a plan. What money needs, what it responds to, is direction. It will follow your plan, but it will not create one for you. That part is your job. And when you finally give it direction, through intention, through structure, through discipline, it becomes a loyal servant. It begins to grow, to replicate, to expand its influence, but only once it is given a purpose. Untethered money is always lost money. It slips away, unnoticed, when it has no assignment. But even modest income, when directed clearly, can build stability, safety, and eventually, freedom. The mistake is waiting for more money before becoming responsible. That is not how it works. Money respects order, not desire. If you mismanage a small income, you will mismanage a larger one. The habits do not change just because the numbers increase. They only magnify. That is why the discipline must begin with what you have now. Because if you cannot steward 100 well, you will not steward 1,000. People say they want wealth, but they often behave in ways that contradict that desire. They gamble hoping for luck. They spend impulsively, hoping for happiness. They avoid investing, hoping that security will somehow arrive without effort. These contradictions are visible not in their language, but in their ledgers. Money always reveals the truth, and until those contradictions are resolved, no amount will be enough. There is no such thing as being bad with money. There is only being uninformed or undisciplined, both of which are solvable, but only when you stop hiding, when you stop blaming circumstances and start asking, what is this trying to show me? Where is my system weak? Where am I leaking value? Where am I allowing habits to rob my future? This is not about perfection. It is about alignment. When your values, actions, and systems are aligned, money flows more predictably. When they are not, money becomes unstable. That instability is often misinterpreted as bad luck, bad timing, or external manipulation. But in most cases, it is the result of internal misalignment, of trying to build wealth on a foundation of avoidance. Money also speaks through timing. The delay in return is often the most honest signal of how long it takes to build something meaningful. If you start investing today and expect results tomorrow, you are not listening to money. You are projecting emotion onto a system that only rewards consistency and patience. The market does not move by your feelings. It moves by patterns, and those patterns respond to input, not urgency. Let us take this further. If you want to know what your future looks like, look at your current money habits. They are predictive. If you save consistently, you are buying yourself options. If you invest wisely, you are buying your future self freedom. If you spend mindlessly, you are stealing from your future self and compounding the debt. Every transaction is a vote for the life you will eventually live. This is why money is not shallow. It is not greedy. It is not evil. It is a tool, a servant, a magnifier. And like any tool, it can be misused, but its nature remains neutral and its honesty remains unmatched. You can lie to yourself. You can convince others, but your bank account does not lie. Your statement tells the truth, and it will keep telling it until you decide to listen. Some will avoid this level of honesty because to face it requires humility. It requires admitting that you made choices that were emotional, short-sighted, or unconscious. But that humility is not shame. It is liberation, because once you accept the truth, you can change. You can rewrite the pattern. You can repurpose the system, but not until you admit what is no longer working. Money also speaks in silence. When opportunities stop showing up, when your income plateaus, when people stop reaching out, that is a message. It means your current value is no longer rising. It means your current output has reached saturation. It is not punishment. It is a prompt to evolve, to refine, to reintroduce yourself to the market with more clarity, more skill, more relevance. In this way, money is a feedback loop. The market tells you, with brutal honesty, how much it trusts you, values you, and needs you. If the numbers are low, do not beg. Improve. Do not blame. Adjust. Do not shrink. Strategize. The numbers are not against you. They are simply showing you what needs to change. And once you make those changes, once your value increases, your clarity sharpens, and your systems align, money responds. Always. It may take time. It may take patience, but it will respond, because money is not a mystery. It is a system, and systems reward those who respect their rules. That is the core message here. Money talks, not in words, but in results. And those results, when interpreted correctly, are the most powerful form of education available. Every financial outcome you have experienced is feedback. Every gain is a reflection of leverage. Every loss is a lesson in strategy. Every delay is an opportunity to rework your system. There is no failure in money, only feedback. So the next time you feel frustrated, stuck, or behind, do not just ask, why isn't this working? Ask, what is the money trying to tell me? What is it revealing about your beliefs, your priorities, your discipline, your systems? Listen, adjust, act. Chapter 12. The Compound Interest of Behavior. In finance, we often speak of compound interest as a mathematical force, a quiet engine that grows wealth over time. But there is another kind of compounding at work in every life, one more powerful than any bank account or investment portfolio. It is the compound interest of behavior. Every financial outcome you experience, whether success or struggle, is built on behaviors that have repeated over time. The single act of spending does not determine your destiny. A single investment decision does not make you rich, but what you do consistently, how you think, how you respond, how you choose, that is what multiplies, and it multiplies in silence, long before results are visible. This chapter is not about interest rates. It is not about numbers. It is about the decisions you make when no one is watching, the patterns you reinforce, the disciplines you neglect, the attitudes you carry. Because wealth is not a result of one big moment. It is the accumulated consequence of 1,000 small ones. Let us start with behavior and time. A person who spends just 5% more than they earn each month may not notice the damage in the short term, but over a decade, the gap widens, debt grows, pressure builds, financial freedom slips further away. Meanwhile, another person saves a modest 10% every month. They are not UTI yet, but their behavior compounds. What they begin now becomes leverage later. After 10 years, the difference is no longer small. It is monumental. Now consider discipline. Discipline is not dramatic. It does not attract applause, but it is the root system of wealth. The person who sets a budget and follows it month after month, even when it is inconvenient, is building something real. They are mastering delay. They are training consistency. That behavior earns compound interest, not just in money but in character. The same applies to learning. A person who reads, listens, questions, and studies a little each day may not seem different next week. But knowledge accumulates. Understanding deepens. They begin to notice opportunities others miss. They make smarter decisions, avoid costly errors, and develop a quiet confidence. That intelligence compounds, and eventually it separates them from the average. Even your language matters. How you speak about money reflects your underlying beliefs. If your daily language is filled with lack, I can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. I'm just not good with finances. Those patterns begin to shape your behavior. Over time, they form identity, and identity drives decisions. What you repeat becomes what you live. Your beliefs compound just as surely as your investments. So much of wealth building is invisible. It happens in thoughts and routines. It happens when you choose to learn instead of scroll, when you send the invoice without hesitation, when you review your accounts even when it's uncomfortable. These are not thrilling decisions, but repeated, they define the difference between those who survive and those who thrive. There is a myth that wealthy people became rich through a single idea, a lucky break, a major windfall. But the truth, for most, is far quieter. They made small decisions that other people avoided. They stayed consistent when others were erratic. They built systems where others improvised. And while their results may seem sudden, the behavior behind those results had been compounding for years. Let us look at failure. How you respond to it is one of the clearest indicators of your financial trajectory. Those who take failure personally tend to avoid future risks. Their behavior becomes guarded, cautious, risk-averse. Over time, they miss opportunity after opportunity. The pattern compounds, not in losses, but in absence. Meanwhile, those who treat failure as data, who adjust and re-engage, continue growing. Their resilience compounds into confidence. Their confidence compounds into action, and action is what moves the financial needle. Now consider generosity. A person who practices giving, even in small amounts, builds a relationship with money that is not based on fear. They begin to see money as a tool, not a burden. They release the grip of scarcity. That mindset affects how they negotiate, how they price their work, how they invest in themselves. Generosity, when practiced consistently, shifts a person's financial psychology. And that shift, though hard to measure, compounds into lasting abundance. Even your circle of influence has compound effect. If you surround yourself with people who avoid responsibility, who complain about money, who dismiss ambition, that environment shapes you, not immediately, but slowly. Their attitudes seep into your thinking. Their fears echo in your decisions. But if you align yourself with those who take ownership, who speak possibility, who normalize discipline, your standards rise, your behavior shifts. And that shift, over years, becomes the difference between struggle and sovereignty. This is why small changes matter, because nothing stays small when given enough time. The decision to track your spending today will impact how much you have 5 years from now. The decision to invest a few dollars each week, to cancel a single wasteful subscription, to read one more chapter, these are not minor acts. They are compound behaviors. They are seeds that, given enough care, grow into trees. It is tempting to wait for big moments, a raise, a windfall, a new job, a breakthrough opportunity, but the real leverage is already in your hands. It lives in your routines, in your response to small choices, in your willingness to be consistent when no one is watching. There is no dramatic secret. The secret is repetition. Let us not ignore self-respect, because how you treat your money reflects how you treat yourself. A person who constantly overdraws their account, ignores their debt, or spends recklessly is often not just undisciplined. They are disconnected. Disconnected from their worth, from their vision, from their future. Respecting money is not just about dollars. It is about identity. And when you shift your behavior, you begin to rewire your sense of what you deserve. The opposite is also true. Every time you follow through, even on a small financial promise to yourself, your self-respect grows. That growth compounds. Eventually, you stop negotiating with mediocrity. You stop tolerating waste. You stop shrinking your value to stay comfortable. You become a person who lives in alignment with wealth, not just in theory, but in habit. So where do you begin? You begin where you are, with the next choice, with the next dollar, with the next hour of focused work. The idea is not to become perfect. It is to become consistent. Wealth does not require brilliance. It requires repetition. The same way compound interest multiplies plenty, repeated behaviors, aligned with vision, multiplied power, 1% better every day. That is not a slogan. It is a financial strategy. Small actions repeated over time have a greater impact than dramatic but inconsistent effort. Your job is not to impress. It is to align, to behave like the person you are becoming, to show up again and again until your life catches up to your standards. There is one more layer. The environment you build around your behavior either supports compounding or sabotages it. Systems matter. If your money is organized, it becomes easier to stay consistent. If your goals are visible, your habits stay anchored. If your routines are automated, your discipline becomes less vulnerable to mood. Structure supports behavior, and behavior, over time, changes everything. This is why the most successful individuals build systems that protect their progress. Automatic savings, weekly reviews, clear tracking, boundaries around time and energy. They do not rely on willpower. They rely on alignment. Their behavior is not heroic. It is repeatable. And that is what compounds. So take a look at your daily patterns. What are they multiplying? Every action is a vote for wealth or for stagnation. Every hour spent learning, building, creating is an investment. Every moment of avoidance, denial, or delay is a withdrawal. You are either compounding power or compounding regret. You do not need to change everything overnight, but you must begin, because time is your greatest asset, and behavior is how you spend it. The cost of inconsistency is invisible until it isn't. The cost of avoidance is silent until the opportunity is gone. But the reward for consistent, aligned behavior, that is the wealth you have always wanted. Chapter 13. You can't afford what you tolerate. There is a hidden cost in every life, not in what is spent, but in what is tolerated. Most people assume that financial loss comes from poor decisions, bad investments, or missed opportunities. But the deeper truth is more confronting. The greatest financial damage often stems not from action, but from inaction, not from recklessness, but from quiet tolerance. And over time, what you tolerate shapes what you earn, what you keep, and what you become. Tolerance is subtle. It doesn't announce itself with alarms or red flags. It shows up in small compromises, in the underpayment you accept without question, the hours you work beyond agreement, the clients you keep despite stress, the debt you ignore month after month. These moments seem isolated, harmless even, but they add up. They form a ceiling, and soon your entire financial life is boxed in, not by limits imposed from the outside, but by what you've chosen to endure. Tolerance begins in the mind. It is formed by belief, the belief that this is all you're worth, that it's too risky to ask for more, that saying no will cost you relationships or reputation. These beliefs are not always conscious. Often they are inherited, learned, absorbed from environments where sacrifice was praised and boundaries were feared. But once they're in place, they guide behavior, and behavior over time becomes your bottom line. This chapter is about reclaiming that line. It's about drawing it again with precision, with courage, with clarity, because you cannot afford to keep tolerating what drains you. You cannot keep making room for what undermines your value. You cannot build wealth on the back of silence, hesitation, or emotional convenience. The path to financial power begins with an audit, not just of your finances, but of your standards. Let's start with income. If you are underpaid, that is not just an economic issue, it is a tolerance issue. It means you have accepted a level of compensation that does not match your contribution. Maybe out of fear, maybe out of habit. But the math is secondary. The mindset is what matters, because as long as you tolerate being underpaid, you will remain underpaid. No employer, no client, no partner will pay you more than you demand. Not consistently. The market rewards what is asserted, not what is hoped for. You cannot passively receive value in this world. You must claim it, define it, defend it. If you've never negotiated your salary, if you've never raised your rates, if you've never asked to be paid what your time is truly worth, then you are not just losing income, you are reinforcing a belief that your labor is negotiable, but your worth is not. Now look at your time. What are you tolerating here? Meetings that serve no purpose, calls that interrupt your focus, work that should have been delegated, but instead clutters your schedule. The moments you give away without cost are not free. They have value. Every distracted hour, every silent yes, every accommodation made out of guilt or discomfort, it all has a price, and you are paying it. Time is not just a calendar issue, it is a financial one, because time is where leverage begins. Time is the soil in which productivity grows. When you allow others to trample your schedule, when you refuse to guard your energy, you are not being generous, you are being robbed. Gently, subtly, but persistently, and you are letting it happen. Now consider your relationships, personal and professional. Who in your life regularly disrespects your boundaries, your vision, your progress? Who belittles your ambition, minimizes your efforts, mocks your dreams? These are not just emotional hazards, they are financial ones, because mindset drives money, and the people you keep close either expand your perspective or compress it. Tolerating those who shrink you is not noble, it is expensive. Your circle matters. It shapes your language, your confidence, your decision-making. Surround yourself with people who normalize dysfunction, and you'll begin to doubt excellence. Stay too long around those who avoid responsibility, and your own standards will start to decay. This erosion is quiet, but cumulative. You begin making different choices, safer ones, smaller ones, not because you believe in them, but because you've grown accustomed to their applause. You cannot afford that. You cannot afford to keep people close simply because of history, convenience, or guilt. Every voice in your life is either reinforcing your vision or undermining it. If someone's presence costs you clarity, energy, or peace, the bill will eventually show up in your finances. Tolerance also shows up in your systems or lack thereof. The financial chaos you've grown used to, the lack of budgeting, the random approach to savings, the avoidance of statements, the missed payments that now feel normal. These are all tolerated patterns. You've built comfort around them, but comfort does not negate cost. Every month you delay, every opportunity you miss, every unnecessary fee you absorb, it is all cumulative, and tolerance is what keeps it in place. What's dangerous about tolerance is how rational it feels. It's not that bad. I'll deal with it later. At least I'm not as bad as others. These justifications are traps. They are the language of stagnation. They are how the average justify remaining average. But if you are serious about building wealth, not just income, not just appearances, but real, generational, sustainable wealth, then you must develop intolerance. Strategic intolerance, not of people, not of risk, but of anything that undermines your path forward. This includes the way you talk to yourself, your internal dialogue. Are you tolerating self-disrespect? Are you repeating phrases that shrink your identity? I'm not good with money. I've always been bad at numbers. This just isn't for people like me. These are not just words. They are permissions. Every time you say them, you allow yourself to perform below your potential. You must learn to recognize the cost of internal tolerances, the beliefs that never challenged your upbringing, the stories you accepted from people who were broke, bitter, or scared, the shame you carry because someone once told you wanting more made you greedy. These are not harmless. They are expensive. They do not show up as line items, but they drain your future. The process of change begins with refusal, refusing to tolerate what you've always accepted, refusing to stay in patterns that deplete, refusing to treat survival as success. This refusal does not make you difficult. It makes you deliberate. It means you have re-established standards, and money follows standards. The reason many people stay stuck is because they make goals but not rules. They dream big but tolerate small. They want financial expansion but allow chaos in their systems, drama in their circle, and fear in their thinking. You cannot wish your way into wealth. You must draw the line. You must make it clear, to yourself first, then to the world, what you will no longer permit. That clarity has consequences. People may leave. Opportunities may shift. Some doors may close, but the ones that open will match your new level. Because money respects alignment. And when your habits, your schedule, your boundaries, and your beliefs are all aligned, wealth becomes the natural result. There is a quiet power in becoming a person who no longer tolerates mediocrity. It does not require anger. It does not require drama. Just a simple, consistent refusal to compromise where it matters most. You do not raise your value by begging for more. You raise it by refusing less. This may mean making uncomfortable changes, saying no where you once said yes, walking away from low-paying work, ending relationships that dishonor your vision, reorganizing systems, having harder conversations, facing your financial reality without flinching. But the discomfort is temporary. The reward is long-term sovereignty. Every time you choose not to tolerate what weakens you, you make space for something stronger. You make room for income that matches your contribution, for relationships that amplify your growth, for systems that multiply your time, for confidence that does not need to be rehearsed, because it's built on alignment. Tolerance when unexamined becomes identity, but you are not obligated to remain loyal to your past standards. You can redraw the line. You can raise the bar, and when you do, money will respond, because money is not loyal to effort. It is loyal to alignment. It flows where it is respected. It expands where it is managed, and it stays where it is honored. You do not have to be aggressive. You do not have to be loud, but you do have to be firm. You do have to be honest, and you do have to decide clearly what is no longer acceptable, because you will either pay the price of discipline now or the cost of tolerance later. Chapter 14. The Money You Can't See. Most people only measure money by what they can touch, count, or spend. They look at their bank account, their paycheck, the cash in their wallet. If the number is high, they feel secure. If it's low, they feel panic. But in truth, the most powerful money is not the kind you can see. It's the kind that's building silently behind the scenes. Invisible wealth, unseen value, hidden momentum. And until you learn to see beneath the surface, you'll always underestimate your true financial position. This chapter is about perception, not just of money as a substance, but of money as a system, because the person who understands how wealth moves, how it flows through unseen relationships, untapped assets, intangible leverage, that person plays the financial game on a completely different level. They're not chasing dollars, they're constructing systems. They're not reacting to numbers, they're shaping environments. And most importantly, they're patient, because they know that wealth always shows up last. We begin with the first layer of unseen money, potential energy. Just as in physics, potential energy is the stored capacity for movement. It's not yet kinetic, but it's real. In finance, this shows up in your knowledge, your network, your skill set, your positioning. You may not be monetizing it now, but the value is present, waiting to be activated. A person who has built trust, acquired knowledge, sharpened execution, and created options is far wealthier than the person who has only accumulated cash. Why? Because when opportunity arrives, they are ready, and readiness is a form of capital. Next comes leverage. Leverage is the quiet engine behind exponential results. It is rarely visible to the outside world, but it determines everything. A person with strong leverage can earn more while doing less. Their words carry weight. Their systems work while they sleep. Their assets multiply without their presence. Leverage is not just financial. It is intellectual, social, and digital. It's the book that sells without promotion, the video that teaches while they rest, the team that builds without needing constant guidance. And most people miss it because they're too busy looking for hourly pay. Now let's talk about reputation, the currency that never appears on a balance sheet, but decides which doors open. Reputation is invisible money. A strong one makes things effortless. People return your calls. They forward your name. They grant you trust before you've proven anything. Reputation, when maintained with consistency and clarity, compounds. You may not see the effects today, but one introduction, one opportunity, one unseen endorsement can change your trajectory forever. And then there's positioning. Most people don't understand that money flows toward visibility, not just existence. It's not enough to be talented. You have to be positioned. You have to be in the right market, at the right elevation, with the right message. If people cannot see your value, they cannot pay you for it. And positioning is often invisible until results arrive. The right headline, the right brand identity, the right relationships, the right room. That positioning is money even before the first sale happens. It's just not yet in your hands. We also must consider habits. Discipline is invisible. You don't see the effect of budgeting once. You don't feel the power of reading one chapter or saving a small amount or making a single call. But every one of those choices, when repeated, becomes part of your financial architecture. They lay the foundation for wealth that others will call luck. But it wasn't luck. It was invisible effort, stacking over time. Habits are invisible money because they build the container that holds visible results. This brings us to the most misunderstood form of wealth: attention. In today's world, attention is currency. It's not just a marketing buzzword. It is the new oil, the new land, the new real estate, and it is almost entirely invisible to the untrained eye. A person who captures attention ethically, consistently, and with value controls leverage. They control demand. They dictate the terms of engagement. It may look like a video, a podcast, a single tweet, but behind that moment is an engine, and that engine, when understood, prints money. Now consider energy, your physical energy, mental clarity, and emotional bandwidth. These are all forms of invisible money. They decide how long you can work, how deeply you can think, how clearly you can speak. A person in peak energy can earn in 1 hour what others earn in 10, not because they're smarter, but because they're sharper, more aligned, more focused. You can have all the strategy in the world, but if your energy is low, your money will be too. That's not a mystery. It's mechanic. Let's talk about ownership. This is one of the deepest layers of invisible money. Ownership of your time, ownership of your decisions, ownership of your intellectual property. Many people think they're building wealth when they're really just building someone else's dream. They're workers, not owners. And ownership, though silent at first, always outpaces labor. The employee with a salary feels rich today, but the owner of the platform earns while asleep. The investor earns while silent. The creator earns from yesterday's work. Ownership is slow at first, then exponential. Invisible money also hides in decisions not made. Every no is a form of capital. Every toxic client declined. Every distraction rejected. Every misaligned opportunity turned down. These things don't show up on a profit and loss sheet, but they protect your future earnings. They preserve your mental clarity. They keep your brand clean. And over time, that restraint adds up to more income than most people ever realize. Then there is faith, not blind hope, not fantasy, but the grounded certainty that your actions are building something real, that your standards mean something, that your effort is not wasted, that your alignment is not in vain. Faith is invisible money because it allows you to keep going before the results show. And without it, most people quit too early, right before their compounding begins to pay out. So how do you track the money you can't see? You measure growth in clarity, in peace, in alignment, in traction. If you're less reactive today than last year, that's invisible wealth. If your audience has grown, if your decision-making is faster, if your boundaries are stronger, if your offers are clearer, these are signals. Not all capital is cash. Some of it is capacity. This requires patience. The biggest financial mistake people make is quitting on something just before the compounding becomes visible. They pull the seed from the soil because it didn't bloom in a week. But invisible money works on a lag. It shows up later and bigger. You will not be paid immediately for every good decision, but you will be paid eventually. If your habits are right, if your direction is aligned, if your strategy is consistent. There's an emotional test to this. Can you keep working when no one is clapping? Can you stay consistent when nothing is obvious? Can you persist when your family doesn't understand, your bank account looks thin, and your results are still underground? This is the test of the wealthy, not their ambition, but their durability. Because while others panic, the wealthy prepare. While others compare, they compound. They understand that just because they can't see the results yet, doesn't mean they're not arriving. They trust the system. They improve the system. They build in silence. And when the wealth appears, it looks like a breakthrough. But in truth, it was inevitable. Invisible money also means understanding where your time converts into value. Not all hours are equal. 1 hour building a system may be worth more than 10 hours in meetings. One conversation may be worth more than a week of content. One client may change your year, but you can only see this if you're tracking value, not effort. That's why wealthy people obsess over focus. They eliminate noise. They reduce inputs. Because they're not chasing more work, they're chasing more signal. They know the money is in precision, and precision requires clarity. You can't access invisible money while distracted. It hides from the scattered. It reveals itself only to those willing to slow down and see. There's one final truth. The more invisible your wealth, the harder it is for others to understand you. You may seem calm when others are stressed. You may be investing time in something that isn't paying you yet. You may say no to short-term offers because you're building long-term plays, and that will confuse people. but that confusion is a sign you're ahead of the curve. The world sees what it can measure, but real wealth lives where most people don't look, behind the scenes, beneath the surface, beyond the moment, in the money you can't yet touch but that's already taking shape. And once you learn to recognize it, protect it, and multiply it, you'll never chase visible money again. You'll build the systems that create it over and over again. Chapter 15. Why the Poor Stay Loyal to Struggle. Poverty is not just an economic condition, it is a mental contract, a quiet, binding agreement with struggle. And until that contract is broken, no amount of income, opportunity, or advice will bring lasting wealth. In fact, one of the most painful truths in personal finance is this: many people stay poor, not because they are incapable, but because they are loyal to the very patterns, beliefs, and behaviors that ensure they never rise. This chapter is not about blame, it is about awareness. Because until you recognize how deep the loyalty to struggle runs, you cannot escape it. You may increase your income, but sabotage your savings. You may get promoted, but increase your lifestyle cost to match. You may receive a financial blessing, only to give it away, spend it emotionally, or disqualify yourself from keeping it. Why? Because a deeper script is running. A script that says, struggle is familiar, prosperity is suspicious. Let's begin with identity. People stay where they believe they belong. If someone has internalized the idea that they are the kind of person who struggles, who always falls behind, who never quite catches a break, who has to hustle harder than everyone else just to stay afloat, then that belief becomes a thermostat. The moment life starts to feel too easy, they unconsciously adjust the heat. They make a mistake. They create a delay. They self-sabotage. Not because they are weak, but because ease feels like a threat to their sense of self. It sounds irrational, but it's deeply human. We attach to our struggle because it gives us meaning. It gives us identity. It gives us community. Think about it. How many people bond over being broke, over being tired, overworked, underpaid? The language of lack becomes a badge of honor. I'm grinding. I'm barely making it. Another day. Another dollar. These phrases aren't just expressions, they're rituals. They reinforce belonging in a tribe of survivors. And when prosperity threatens that identity, it's not just money on the line, it's the emotional safety of who we think we are. There is a strange comfort in predictability, even when it hurts. Struggle, for many, is predictable. They know how to survive there. They've rehearsed the script 1,000 times. They know how to stretch $20 until payday. They know how to explain away bounced checks, unpaid bills, or broken promises. They know how to tell themselves, next month will be different, even when it won't be. This predictability becomes home. And when you try to introduce change, real, lasting, inconvenient change, it feels like exile. Poverty also offers moral license. It allows a person to say, at least I'm not greedy, or at least I don't worship money like they do. This righteousness becomes armor. It allows the person to feel superior to those who are financially successful, because they've conflated wealth with corruption. So long as they stay broke, they get to keep their perceived purity, but that's not integrity. It's insecurity in disguise, and it's incredibly costly. We must also confront fear. For many, the idea of wealth is terrifying, not because they don't want it, but because it requires them to operate in unknown territory. It demands responsibility, visibility, discipline, boundaries, and above all, it requires them to confront what they've been avoiding, their worth. Because once you claim your value, you can no longer hide behind victimhood. You must act like someone who deserves more. And that's frightening when you've built your entire life around being invisible. The poor often stay loyal to struggle because it allows them to delay that confrontation. I'll start budgeting when I make more. I'll invest once I understand everything. I'll change when things calm down. These are not plans, they are delays wrapped in logic. They feel responsible, but they are rooted in fear. And fear, when repeated long enough, becomes culture. Let's talk about cultural inheritance. Many people were raised in environments where money was a source of stress, secrecy, or shame. They watched their parents argue about bills, avoid the mailbox, or make sacrifices that left deep emotional imprints. And even if they vow to do better, those early scripts remain. They form the foundation of the financial beliefs we carry into adulthood. If you were taught that life is always hard, that money never stays, that people with wealth are arrogant or untrustworthy, then struggle becomes not just normal, it becomes noble. But nobility does not pay bills, and it does not change cycles. At some point, the emotional loyalty to struggle must be broken. This is not done with spreadsheets. It is done with truth. It requires looking in the mirror and asking hard questions. What am I afraid of? What am I avoiding? What stories have I believed that no longer serve me? Who taught me to wear struggle like a badge? And why have I kept listening? One of the hardest patterns to break is financial martyrdom. The belief that if you sacrifice enough, struggle enough, serve enough, that someday the universe will reward you. It won't. The universe rewards alignment, not exhaustion. You are not paid more because you suffer more. You are paid more when you deliver more value, protect your energy, communicate your worth, and move with strategy. Struggle is not currency, it is cost. And too many people are overdrawing their future, trying to prove they're worthy of it. There is also the myth of sudden rescue, the idea that someday someone will come along and fix it. A rich relative, a generous employer, a government program, a last-minute miracle. And so people wait. They don't build, they don't plan, they tolerate delay, because they've handed off responsibility to chance. But chance is not a wealth strategy, hope is not a financial plan, and dependency is not safety. It is delay wearing a smile. To break loyalty to struggle, a person must first give themselves permission. Permission to thrive. Permission to change the story. Permission to earn more without guilt. Permission to leave behind the people who only knew them as a struggler. This permission will feel like betrayal at first, because the struggle identity is woven into relationships, into culture, into pride. But you cannot carry both poverty and peace. One must be released. You must learn to recognize the patterns that keep you poor, overgiving, undervaluing, saying yes to things that drain you, refusing to track your spending, avoiding financial conversations. These are not personality traits, they are programmed responses, and they can be rewritten, but only if you stop defending them. It starts with small defiance, saying no when you used to say yes, asking questions when you used to stay quiet, negotiating instead of accepting, delaying gratification instead of escaping into it. These shifts seem small, but they are tectonic, because they signal to your subconscious, we don't live in struggle anymore. We don't worship survival. We build, we protect, we lead. There will be resistance, internally and externally. People around you may feel threatened. You've changed. You're too good for us now. Don't forget where you came from. These are not warnings. They are reflections. They reveal who is still married to the struggle, and who is afraid you'll leave them behind, and maybe you will, not in love, but in mindset. We must stop romanticizing suffering. Stop turning burnout into proof of effort. Stop acting like having less makes you morally superior. There is no virtue in struggle for its own sake. The real virtue is in stewardship, in creating so much abundance that you can bless others, not out of exhaustion, but overflow. Ask yourself, who benefits when I stay broke? Who is comfortable when I stay tired? Who applauds when I settle? These are the ghosts of the struggle contract, and they only have power if you keep signing it. There is a life beyond survival, beyond late fees and overdrafts, beyond scarcity-based friendship, beyond paycheck-to-paycheck panic. But you cannot arrive there by accident. You must choose it. And to choose it, you must first reject the identity that says you're not allowed. Freedom is not found in running harder. It is found in rewriting the agreement. You are not here to prove your worth through struggle. You are here to demonstrate your vision through alignment, to earn in proportion to your value, to live in proportion to your peace, and to give in proportion to your overflow. Chapter 16. Passive income is not optional. Passive income is no longer a luxury. It is no longer a concept reserved for the wealthy, the retired, or the unusually ambitious. In today's financial landscape, passive income is a requirement, not because it's trendy, but because it is the only reliable antidote to an increasingly unstable economy. If you do not learn to make money while you sleep, then you will always be at the mercy of the clock, the client, or the crisis. And sooner or later, that price will become too high to pay. Let's begin with the brutal reality. Time-based income has a ceiling. There are only so many hours in a day, only so many days in a week, and only so many years you can exchange effort for cash before fatigue sets in, markets shift, or your circumstances demand more than your calendar allows. Whether you are an employee, a freelancer, a consultant, or even a business owner, if your revenue depends on your constant presence, then your wealth is on a leash. And it doesn't matter how long that leash is, you are still tethered. Passive income changes the dynamic entirely. It rewrites the rules. It separates your time from your earnings. It gives your money a job and your mind a margin. Most importantly, it creates options, the most underrated form of wealth. Because true financial freedom is not about escape. It is about having choices, the choice to work or not work, to scale or to rest, to pivot when life requires it. Passive income is the mechanism that makes those choices real, not just romantic. But let's be clear, passive does not mean effortless. It means front-loaded. It means leveraged. It means systems over sprints. And yes, it means temporary sacrifice for long-term reward. The word passive misleads many into thinking it involves no labor, no risk, and no resilience. But that is a fantasy sold by marketers, not a reality built by masters. Real passive income requires intention. It requires design. It requires a mindset shift from consumer to creator, from worker to owner. Consider this: every wealthy person you admire, regardless of industry, has mastered one truth. They earn from what they've already done. Their past work continues to pay them. Their knowledge has been captured, packaged, and sold. Their investments earn while they travel. Their systems breathe without intervention. This is not magic. It is structure. And structure is something you can build. There are many forms of passive income. But the most important thing to understand is not the method. It's the mentality. A passive income mindset asks a different set of questions. Not how much can I earn this hour, but what can I build today that will pay me every hour after? Not what job will give me more, but what asset can I create that gives me leverage? This shift is not easy, but it is necessary. Let's walk through a simple example. Imagine someone writes an ebook, or builds a digital course, or licenses a product. The effort to create it may take weeks, months even. But once completed, that product does not require their physical presence to deliver value. It can be purchased at midnight, downloaded across continents, or recommended by algorithms. The creator is sleeping, but the income continues. That is passive income, not instant, but inevitable when designed with clarity. Now consider the alternative: working harder and longer for slightly more money. The raise that's 3%. The promotion that requires double the hours, the second job that steals your weekends. These approaches feel productive, but they trap you in a cycle. You burn more fuel for incremental gain, and the moment you stop because of illness, burnout, or external disruption, the income stops too. That is not freedom. That is fragility disguised as effort. Real wealth builders ask themselves early, what will keep paying me even if I step away? They do not rely on motivation. They rely on mechanisms. They understand that every hour spent building a machine is worth 10 hours spent working in one, and they commit, not because it's trendy, but because they understand the cost of not doing so. Some forms of passive income are financial, like dividend-paying stocks, rental properties, or high-yield portfolios. Others are intellectual, like books, courses, or digital tools. Others still are digital infrastructures like monetized YouTube channels, affiliate websites, or subscription communities. Each has its own learning curve, its own risks, but all share one principle: the work is done once. The rewards come repeatedly. The average person hesitates here. What if it doesn't work? What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? These are valid fears, but they are the wrong questions. The right question is, what happens if I don't try? The answer is simple. You stay in the loop. You keep earning once. You keep starting over. You keep praying nothing goes wrong, because if it does, your income evaporates. Passive income protects against that fragility. It is a shield. It is a backup plan. It is a quiet power that gives you confidence, not because life won't happen, but because you've prepared for when it does. When your income is diversified through passive streams, your anxiety decreases, your options increase. You stop operating from survival. You start operating from strategy. But let's address the emotional resistance. Many people struggle to build passive income because deep down, they don't believe they deserve to earn without effort. They equate ease with laziness. They think money must be hard-earned to be moral. This is not noble, it is conditioning, and it is costing you freedom. You were not born to hustle endlessly. You were born to build, and building, once done correctly, does not require your constant suffering. You must give yourself permission to earn in new ways, to create systems that serve people without your daily hand-holding, to automate, to license, to distribute, to step out of the center and let your past value work for your future income. This requires maturity. It requires letting go of the addiction to busyness. Because real wealth builders don't just ask, how can I work harder? They ask, how can I replace myself? Passive income also reveals your true relationship with time. Do you see time as something to trade for money, or do you see it as something to invest in freedom? The former will always leave you exhausted. The latter will always lead you toward abundance. The goal is not to escape work altogether. The goal is to build a portfolio of freedom, streams of income that buy you back your time so you can use it with intention. Imagine waking up and knowing your expenses are already covered, not because you hustled that morning, but because you built something last year that is still working. That is not fantasy. That is structure. That is ownership. And it begins with the decision to stop trading all your time for money and to start asking, what can I own that keeps paying me? Every hour you spend scrolling, consuming, reacting, that is time stolen from your freedom. But every hour you spend building something that earns while you rest, that is time deposited into your future peace. The clock is not your enemy. The clock is your test. And the person who learns to make time their partner becomes untouchable. Even if you start small, with one stream, one product, one investment, the momentum matters, because once you taste passive income, your brain changes. You no longer think like a laborer. You think like a builder. You start to ask, what else can I systemize? What else can I automate? What else can I create that serves without needing me every time? This shift is priceless. And here's the deeper truth. The world needs more builders. People who create systems, who share knowledge, who produce value at scale. Passive income is not selfish. It is service when built with integrity. It multiplies your reach. It helps people when you are not present. It delivers value without burnout. And in doing so, it rewards you financially. Yes, but also emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Passive income is not a luxury. It is a responsibility. If you have knowledge, skill, or experience that can help others, it is your duty to package it, to automate it, and to allow it to serve, not only for your benefit, but for theirs. Because your exhaustion helps no one. Your systems, on the other hand, could help thousands. Do not wait until you're burned out to start building passive income. Do not wait until you're desperate. Begin while you still have the energy to be intentional. Start while you still have room to experiment. Build while you're strong, not because you fear collapse, but because you are finally wise enough to prevent it. Chapter 17. Debt is a mirror. Debt is not just a financial tool. It is not merely an amount on a ledger or a figure at the bottom of your bank statement. Debt, in its most revealing form, is a mirror. It reflects back to you the invisible dynamics of your relationship with money, your habits, your patterns, your beliefs, your fears. And until you face what your debt is showing you, you will not escape it. You might restructure it, you might transfer it, You might ignore it, but it will return. Because it's not just numbers, it's a story. Most people treat debt as the enemy. They avoid it, fear it, or rage against it. But debt, like a mirror, is not hostile. It's honest. It shows you exactly where you are. No polish, no illusion. It reveals the gap between your lifestyle and your income, the space between your discipline and your desires, the difference between how you want to appear and what you're actually building. And just like a mirror, debt doesn't lie, even when you wish it would. You cannot fix what you refuse to face. You cannot solve what you've buried in shame. That's why debt must first be understood, not judged, not shamed, but seen, because every dollar you owe is a breadcrumb. It leads back to a decision, a moment, a habit, a belief. And until you follow those breadcrumbs, you'll repeat the cycle. Start by asking yourself this: why did I borrow? Was it out of necessity, or was it out of impatience? Was it to invest in the future, or to escape the discomfort of the present? Was I building something, or was I proving something? The answers are not always comfortable, but they are essential, because debt incurred from desperation feels different than debt from design. One drains you. The other, when strategic, can grow you. The first kind of debt is reactionary. It comes from a place of lack. You borrow because you're behind, because the bills are due, because the rent is short, because the fridge is empty. This is survival debt, and while it may be necessary in certain seasons, it is the most dangerous kind, not because of the interest rate, but because of the shame attached. Shame compounds faster than interest. It locks you into secrecy. It isolates you. It makes you believe you are broken, but you are not broken. You are buried. And the first step is to stop lying to yourself. Then there is performative debt. You borrow not because you have to, but because you want to keep up, to impress, to sustain an image. This is the debt of ego, and it is brutal because it creates the illusion of success while hollowing out your future. You may have the car, the clothes, the lifestyle, but underneath, you are financially exposed. This kind of debt is seductive. It rewards you instantly, but punishes you quietly. The bill doesn't arrive the same day you swipe the card, and that delay is what traps you. There is also the debt of avoidance. You put off facing the truth. You defer payments. You ignore the interest. You live in denial, thinking that one day somehow it'll sort itself out. This is magical thinking, and it is lethal, because debt does not disappear. It multiplies. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it becomes, not just financially, but emotionally. It weighs on your sleep, your decisions, your relationships. Debt avoidance is not peace. It is the slow leak of confidence. But there is another kind of debt: intentional debt, strategic debt. This is the debt of builders, of creators, of investors. It is the kind of borrowing done with vision, not desperation. It is planned, not impulsive. It has a clear return path, and while it still carries risk, it does not carry shame, because it is aligned with purpose. This kind of debt is not a mirror of dysfunction, but a magnifier of opportunity. But few ever reach this level, because they never clean up the reflection they've avoided. To truly master your money, you must sit with your debt, not just the statements, but the stories. Where were you emotionally when you borrowed? Who were you trying to please? What pain were you trying to escape? What version of yourself were you trying to silence or upgrade or outrun? These are the questions that lead to change. Because unless you change the internal driver, the external numbers will only repeat. Debt becomes dangerous when it becomes normal, when it's so common that you stop questioning it, when you see it as just part of life. But debt is not neutral. It is a claim on your future. Every dollar you owe is a dollar you don't own. It is time already spent, effort already committed, freedom already mortgaged. And when you carry too much of it, you lose optionality. You cannot pivot. You cannot rest. You cannot invest, because all your energy is spoken for. This is why paying off debt is not just financial hygiene. It is spiritual clarity. It returns you to center. It gives you back your yes. It frees your imagination. It reconnects you with the present. Because when your mind is not preoccupied with debt, it is available for vision, for alignment, for generosity. Debt clouds all of that. It creates mental noise, and when the noise is constant, you cannot hear your intuition. You must learn to take ownership without self-punishment. Blame changes nothing, but responsibility changes everything. You are not here to shame yourself for your past debt. You are here to study it, to decode it, to understand what it revealed, and then use that knowledge to architect a new financial future. One that doesn't rely on denial, one that doesn't mask insecurity with spending, one that doesn't confuse approval with progress. Paying off debt is a statement, a declaration. It says, I no longer trade my peace for things I don't need. I no longer pretend I'm okay when I'm not. I no longer outsource my future to creditors. And this process, while difficult, is not a punishment. It is a purification. It is the shedding of what no longer fits, but the process must be sustainable. Aggression without strategy is just self-inflicted burnout. Don't starve yourself trying to pay off debt in record time, only to collapse into the same habits that created it. Instead, build a structure, a rhythm, a plan that honors both your growth and your humanity. Because lasting change is not about speed, it's about alignment. There is power in facing your numbers. Open the letters, log into the accounts, see the truth, not to panic, but to reclaim your authorship, to look debt in the eye and say, you do not define me. You are a season, you are a lesson, you are a chapter, not the title. This is not motivational fluff. It is financial sovereignty. It is the moment you stop hiding. You will be tempted to compare, to judge yourself against others. But remember, many people who appear debt-free are just better at hiding. Their closets are full of silent stress. Do not mistake appearances for truth. Focus on your mirror, clean it, understand it, reframe it, and watch as your clarity returns. As you begin to eliminate debt, something else emerges, self-respect. Every payment becomes a promise kept. Every dollar returned becomes a vote for the future. You stop seeing money as escape. You start seeing it as structure, as stewardship, as a tool for creation, not compensation for emotional pain. This shift is everything, because once you stop using debt to soothe what's unhealed, your money begins to grow, not just numerically, but energetically. It becomes clean, aligned, intentional. You spend less, but feel more satisfied. You earn more, but feel less desperate. And perhaps most importantly, you sleep better, because peace is the greatest return on investment. Eventually, you reach a point where debt is no longer part of your identity. It's not your narrative. It's not your burden. It's a memory. And from that place, you make new choices. You invest from overflow. You give without resentment. You build without fear, because the mirror no longer scares you. It empowers you. Chapter 18. Scarcity makes you stupid. Scarcity does not only affect your wallet, it affects your thinking. It clouds your judgment. It shortens your time horizon. It erodes your creativity. It makes you reactive, impulsive, and fearful. Scarcity is not simply the absence of resources, it is the presence of panic. And when panic leads, intelligence takes a back seat. This chapter is not an insult, it is an intervention. Because when you understand how scarcity warps your mind, you can begin to free yourself from its grip. You can begin to recognize that many of your so-called bad financial decisions weren't a reflection of your intelligence, but of your context. Scarcity narrows the mind. It demands urgency where there should be patience. It demands shortcuts where there should be strategy. When you are broke, truly broke, your brain shifts into survival mode. Every problem becomes immediate. Every solution becomes short-term. You stop thinking about next year and focus entirely on next week. You are no longer optimizing. You are escaping. You do not weigh long-term consequences because the short-term threat feels too urgent. And so you act. You take payday loans. You overdraw accounts. You sell what you need tomorrow to buy what you need today. This is not stupidity. This is what scarcity does to cognition. There's a term for this in behavioral science, the scarcity trap. It refers to the way limited resources, especially money, reduce mental bandwidth. Studies show that people under financial stress perform worse on cognitive tests, not because they are less intelligent, but because part of their brain is occupied with worry. That worry is invisible to outsiders, but constant to the person experiencing it. It is a buzzing alarm in the background of every thought. Scarcity changes your relationship with time. It makes you impatient. You stop asking, "What's the best decision?" and instead ask, "What will fix this now?" But fast fixes are rarely real fixes. They are pressure releases, and they usually create more problems later. You skip the doctor because of the cost, and later face a larger bill. You ignore the interest rate to get quick cash, and later face a debt trap. Scarcity does not just delay success, it builds traps that ensure you stay stuck. The saddest part is how familiar it becomes. Scarcity can feel like home. It becomes a rhythm, a language, even a badge of identity. People say things like, "I'm just bad with money," or "That's life when you're broke." These aren't observations. They're affirmations. They root the person deeper in the mindset of limitation. And once scarcity becomes your identity, your decisions begin to reflect that belief. People under financial stress often make decisions that outsiders judge harshly. But those judgments ignore context. When your fridge is empty, you're not thinking about retirement. When your electricity is about to be cut off, you don't care about the best savings rate. When your child needs medicine, you don't ask about long-term portfolio returns. You act, you react, you survive. But survival mode thinking, repeated over time, becomes habitual, and habits shape futures. This is why breaking free from scarcity requires more than money. It requires mental rewiring. Because even when your income increases, if your mindset doesn't, you will recreate the same cycles. You will spend what you earn. You will make short-sighted choices. You will remain in panic, even if your bank balance improves. That is the cruelest trick scarcity plays. It lingers in the mind long after the threat is gone. To escape scarcity, you must create space, mental space, emotional space, strategic space. You cannot build wealth from a state of constant reaction. You must slow down enough to think, to plan, to imagine. But how can you do that when bills are screaming, and obligations are crushing, and the future feels like a fog? You start small. You interrupt the panic cycle. You create micro margins, a day ahead on bills, a small savings buffer, a single bill automated. These are not fixes. They are footholds. Every inch of space you create weakens the grip of scarcity. That space gives you time to think. It allows you to compare options. It gives you the dignity of deliberation. And with that, your intelligence returns. Your creativity activates. Your decision-making improves. You begin to see not just the next step, but the next 5. That is the difference between scarcity and strategy, perspective. Scarcity tells you to hide. Strategy tells you to track. Scarcity says, "It's loss." Strategy says, "Let's measure." Scarcity hides from the numbers. Strategy faces them. Because when you track what you spend, even in chaos, you begin to reclaim authorship. You are no longer a victim of your money. You are an observer, a planner, a participant in your future. And here's something critical. Scarcity is not always about income. There are people earning 6 figures who still operate in scarcity. They overspend, they panic, they live at the edge of every paycheck because they've built a life that costs more than it returns. Scarcity is not how much you have. It's how little room you leave yourself. If there is no margin, there is no safety. And without safety, there is no calm. Without calm, there is no clear thinking. To build wealth, you must build margin. That means designing your life to be smaller than your income, not to live small, but to think big. Because when your basic needs are met and your lifestyle is sustainable, your brain is free. Free to build, to imagine, to grow. That freedom is priceless, and it is the foundation of every good financial decision you will ever make. But to get there, you must stop normalizing panic. Stop calling stress your personality. Stop accepting constant emergencies as inevitable. Begin designing your life as if peace were a requirement, because it is, not just for joy, but for clarity. Scarcity clouds every vision. It turns your life into a fire drill, and no one can architect a future in a burning building. Begin by asking yourself, what can I simplify? Not what can I earn more from, but what can I remove? What subscriptions, habits, expectations are draining me? What pressures are optional? Because reduction is a form of power. Every dollar you don't owe is a dollar you can build with. Every obligation you eliminate is a decision you can breathe through. Next, create breathing room, even if it's tiny. $100 saved, a day ahead on a bill, a simple system for groceries. These are not glamorous, but they are powerful because they restore your sense of control. They signal to your brain, we are no longer in danger. We can think again. That signal is everything. As you build space, begin building systems. Systems reduce thinking. They replace panic with protocol. You don't ask every day, what should I do? You follow the plan, even if the plan is basic, even if it's imperfect. Systems are stronger than moods. They protect you from scarcity thinking because they create predictable safety. Then protect your attention. Scarcity thrives on noise, marketing, comparison, fear. You must guard your inputs. Unfollow what triggers panic. Distance yourself from those who constantly dramatize money. Stop watching content that pressures you to spend or shame you for saving. Your financial mind is a garden. You must prune what poisons it. As your mind calms, your creativity returns. Ideas flow, opportunities become visible. You begin to think like a builder again. Not because the world has changed, but because your lens has. And that lens determines everything. In scarcity, all you see are problems. In abundance, you begin to see pathways. Scarcity will visit again. Life is cyclical. Emergencies happen. But the difference is now you will know how to respond. Not with panic, but with plan. Not with guilt, but with grace. You will have systems. You will have margin. You will have clarity. And that clarity will be your protection. The goal is not to eliminate every challenge. The goal is to protect your ability to think during them. Because wealth is not built on intensity. It is built on clarity, and clarity requires calm. Calm is a strategy. It is earned, it is built, and it begins when you decide, I will no longer let scarcity drive. Chapter 19. People don't pay for time, they pay for value. We were taught to sell our time. Clock in, clock out, earn by the hour. Count your days, trade them for dollars. But in the real world of wealth, that equation is broken. Time is not what people pay for. They pay for value. And once you understand this shift, once you internalize it, your entire financial path will change. Because the moment you stop counting hours and start measuring value, you stop being a commodity. You become a force. This is not theory. This is the unspoken rule of the economy. Nobody cares how long it took you to do something. They care what it does for them. Whether you're a coach, a coder, a cleaner, a chef, the marketplace is not compensating your minutes. It is rewarding your impact. You can spend 20 hours producing something nobody needs and earn nothing. Or you can solve a deep pain in 10 minutes and be paid more than your week's salary. Time is neutral. Value is leverage. This misunderstanding is what keeps so many people poor. They work harder, longer, more urgently, and feel confused when their income doesn't reflect the effort because they've assumed money is a moral reward for endurance. But the economy is not moral. It is transactional. It rewards relevance. If what you produce solves a real problem, or saves time, or creates delight, or eliminates pain, you will be paid. Not because you're good, but because you're useful. You must understand this distinction. Time is your input. Value is their outcome. And people don't pay for your input. They pay for what your input gives them. This is why one speaker earns $20 and another earns $20,000. It is why one consultant is overlooked and another is overbooked. The difference is not effort. It is outcome. It is perception. It is alignment between what is offered and what is truly needed. Let's take a simple example. A plumber comes to fix your leaking pipe. He spends 5 minutes tightening a valve and charges you $100. You complain, but that only took 5 minutes. And he replies, "You're not paying me for the 5 minutes. You're paying me for the 10 years it took to know which valve to tighten." That is value, not measured in hours, but in mastery. This applies to every field. The freelance designer who charges $500 for a logo is not charging for the hours clicking in Photoshop. They are charging for their taste, their insight, their ability to distill your brand into a single mark that communicates instantly. The writer who crafts an ad in 20 minutes is not selling minutes. They are selling persuasion. They are selling words that sell for you. This is value. This is what people pay for, whether they say it out loud or not. So the question is no longer, how many hours do I work? The question becomes, what is the value of what I create? And even deeper, who benefits from this? And how much is that benefit worth to them? If you solve a $10,000 problem and you charge $100, you are not being humble. You are being irresponsible, because pricing too low tells the market, this isn't valuable, and the market will believe you. People who grow rich are not just skilled, they're strategic. They understand who they serve, what problem they solve, and what result they deliver. Then they price in proportion to that result. This is not greed. This is alignment. A business that saves another business 10 hours a week has created measurable value. A coach who helps a client overcome limiting beliefs and double their revenue has created exponential return. Value-based pricing rewards this alignment. Hour-based thinking sabotages it. And yet, so many resist this shift. They cling to hourly rates. They fear rejection if they raise their price. They apologize for charging more, even when their results have multiplied. This comes from a deep-rooted belief that money equals fairness and fairness equals time. But the world doesn't work that way. The CEO and the janitor do not earn the same, not because of worth, but because of leverage. The CEO controls systems. The janitor controls a mop. One scales, one does not. Leverage is not exploitation. It is multiplication, and value is leverage in action. When you detach your income from your time and attach it to your impact, you begin to scale. You stop chasing hours. You start building assets. You think like a creator, not a clock puncher. And with that shift, your financial ceiling begins to lift. Let's talk about the emotional barrier. Many people were raised to believe that working hard is the ultimate virtue, that rest is laziness, that more hours equals more dignity. So when they begin to earn more by working less, they feel guilty, they self-sabotage, they undercharge, they over-deliver. They burn out trying to prove their worth, instead of trusting their value. This is a mindset trap, and it must be broken. You are not here to prove anything. You are here to serve. And service, when done well, creates transformation. Transformation is priceless. So stop selling the process. Start selling the outcome. Stop selling sessions. Start selling solutions. If what you do changes someone's life, or business, or well-being, price accordingly. Not because you are greedy, because you are clear. You must also master articulation. Value must be communicated. People don't automatically see the depth of your work. They see the packaging, the message, the promise. You must learn to speak in outcomes, in results, in benefits. Not features, not hours, but what it means for them, because no one wakes up wanting coaching. They want clarity, confidence, progress. No one wants design. They want conversions, attention, brand power. Speak their language, not yours. If you're stuck earning less than you want, examine what you're selling and how you're framing it. Are you presenting a solution, or are you selling time? Are you solving a painful problem or offering a vague idea? People don't pay for vague. They pay for relief, for certainty, for transformation. The clearer you get on your value, the easier it becomes to charge what you're worth and attract those who understand that worth. This applies even if you're in a job. Your salary is not a reward for showing up. It is a reflection of your perceived impact. The employees who get promoted, who get bonuses, who are hard to replace, they are not just present, they are valuable. They solve real problems. They take things off their boss's plate. They think like owners even if they don't have shares. If you want to rise, become the person who makes others' lives easier, cheaper, or more effective. Stop waiting for someone to notice your effort. Start packaging your results. Track what you save, what you improve, what you streamline. Make your value visible, and then speak it with confidence. You are not just an expense, you are an investment. And if your employer doesn't see that, someone else will. For entrepreneurs, the message is even sharper. You are not in the business of time, you are in the business of solving problems. If your offer doesn't solve something painful or important, it will be ignored. If your price doesn't match the impact, it will be questioned. If your delivery doesn't match your promise, it will be refunded. This is the game. Play it with clarity, or get played by it. Remember this truth. Time is a cost. Value is the return. People don't care how long you worked on it. They care what it does for them. And if you obsess over their outcome more than your process, you will win. Because people feel that. They feel when something was made with them in mind, when it honors their urgency, when it delivers beyond what they expected. That's when price becomes a footnote, because value was undeniable. We live in a noisy world. People are bombarded with offers, with content, with options. So your value must be obvious, not buried in jargon, not hidden in slides. It must be immediate, clear, and emotionally resonant. People buy with emotion, then justify with logic. So speak to the feeling, deliver the result, and back it up with precision. You are not selling yourself, you are selling a result. Detach your identity from your price. You are not charging for your worth as a person. You are charging for a transformation. Keep that distinction sacred. It will protect your confidence and your client's trust. And if you want to raise your income, raise your value, solve better problems, serve higher impact clients, deliver deeper results. Not everything needs a price increase. Sometimes what you need is a value increase. Become undeniable, become essential. Make yourself the obvious choice, not because you're loud, but because you're aligned. Because in the end, people don't remember how long you worked. They remember what changed, what got better, what problem disappeared, what clarity emerged. That is your value. Own it. Chapter 20. The wealth you carry, the wealth you leave. What is wealth, really? Ask a room full of people and the answers will vary. Some will say it's money in the bank. Others will say it's freedom. Some might call it a number, others a feeling. But beyond the cash flow, beyond the net worth, beyond the assets and accounts and digits on a screen, wealth is a transmission, a signature, a legacy. It is what you carry while you live, and what you leave when you're gone. In the end, every person is a steward of energy, the energy you bring into a room, the ideas you cultivate, the money you build, direct or squander. You are not just earning for yourself, you are showing others what is possible, what is allowed, what is respected, what is repeated. And when you begin to live as someone who carries wealth, not just collects it, you begin to shape more than your life. You shape the lives around you. The wealth you carry is internal first. It is not your balance sheet. It is your mindset. It is your ability to remain calm in chaos, to think clearly under pressure, to plan when others panic, to choose long-term value over short-term validation. This is not taught in schools. It is modeled or missed. You don't need to be born into money to carry wealth. You need to be trained into awareness. The awareness that money is a reflection of how you think, act, and recover. That wealth is not about what happens to you. It's about how you respond. This is why true wealth is silent. It does not shout. It does not perform. It does not need to convince anyone. The wealthiest people in mind and life are often the least flashy, because when you really carry wealth, you stop needing to prove it. You start using it. You start directing it. You become the architect of impact, not the curator of impressions. You make moves, not noise. But the wealth you leave, now that is something deeper. That is not about your income. It is about your imprint. Your children will inherit more than your assets. They will inherit your attitudes, your habits, your fears, your aspirations, your way of handling pressure, and that, more than any trust fund, will shape their future. Because money can be spent or lost, but patterns echo. So ask yourself, what financial energy are you handing down? Are you teaching resilience or reaction? Are you modeling ownership or avoidance? Are you building structure or chaos? What your kids see you do, they will consider normal, and what you normalize, you multiply. If you want to leave real wealth, leave a map, leave systems, leave values, leave tools. Teach them how to think, not just how to spend. This applies beyond your family. Every room you enter, you leave a trace. In business, in community, in every conversation, wealth carriers uplift the standard. They don't flaunt success, they elevate it. They ask better questions. They hold higher standards. They move from generosity, not fear. And because of that, they make others think differently about what's possible. That is the real mark of wealth. Not what you hoard, but what you unlock in others. But make no mistake, this is not soft. This is not sentimental. This is strategic. Because when you die, your bank account won't matter as much as the ripple you created. Did you build something that outlived you? Did you leave a system that worked without you? Did you teach someone how to stand when you weren't there to catch them? That is wealth. That is legacy. That is the dividend of a life well lived. And to reach that place, you must see money for what it is, a magnifier. It makes you more of who you are. If you're generous, it amplifies that. If you're reckless, it multiplies that. If you're afraid, it fuels that. Money doesn't change you, it reveals you. It puts a spotlight on your default patterns. And unless you work on the internal structure, the external gain will expose your cracks. That's why so many people lose wealth after sudden success. Because they didn't change their operating system, they changed their income. And when you upgrade your lifestyle without upgrading your identity, your money will regress. You will find ways to burn it, lose it, sabotage it. Not because you're weak, but because you're untrained. Wealth requires identity work. It is not just about what you earn, it's about what you're equipped to hold. To carry wealth, you must practice structure. You must install rituals, not rely on moods. You must automate discipline, not depend on memory. You must separate your future from your feelings, because feelings change, futures are built. The people who seem most financially free are not less emotional. They are less reactive. They have built systems that work when their emotions don't. And that discipline creates distance. Distance from chaos, from urgency, from self-sabotage. Carrying wealth also means holding space for others without carrying their chaos. You cannot save people who will not save themselves. You can model, you can teach, you can inspire, but you cannot force someone to rise if they are committed to staying small. Sometimes leaving wealth means walking ahead, not doubling back. Sometimes it means letting go, so others can learn. That too is love. That too is legacy. The wealth you leave will be shaped by your ability to detach from proving. So many people spend their lives trying to show they've made it. The car, the house, the brands, all of it in armor. But the people who actually made it, they are too focused on building to bother with parading. They live quietly. They invest deeply. They think generationally. And because of that, their wealth compounds in more than interest. It compounds in impact. Wealth is not fast. It is layered. It is not loud. It is steady. It does not arrive. It is cultivated. If you spend your life chasing arrival, you will always feel behind. But if you see wealth as an evolving relationship, a practice, a stewardship, then every decision becomes sacred, not perfect, not rigid, but intentional, aligned, future focus. You may not have come from wealth, but that does not mean you cannot create it. In fact, those who had to build it from scratch often carry it more wisely because they remember the weight of scarcity, and in that memory, they find fuel to be disciplined, to be intentional, to be generous with precision, to give with structure, not emotion. Because true wealth is not about proving you escaped poverty. It's about ensuring no one you love returns to it. This work is lonely sometimes, especially if you're the first to break patterns, to ask better questions, to say no to the spending that felt normal, to say yes to the planning that feels unfamiliar. You will be misunderstood. You will be mocked. But legacy builders are never fully understood in real time, because they are building for people not yet born. And when you build for the unseen, your work often goes unseen, until the fruit grows, long after you planted the seed. Carry your wealth with grace. Do not let guilt shrink your standard. Do not let other people's panic dictate your pace. The moment you compromise your vision to comfort someone's insecurity, you've diluted your legacy. Stay the course. You do not owe anyone explanation for your clarity. You owe yourself the peace of alignment. And when the day comes, and it will, when someone you raised, mentored, or inspired says, "Because of you, I saw what was possible," remember this: that is the wealth you leave. That moment, that shift, that fire in someone's eyes, that ripple you caused just by living on purpose. The dollars may fade, the titles may fade, but that ripple, that endures. So document your knowledge, write the letter, record the lessons, build the systems, store the blueprints, not just for your benefit, but for the ones who will come after. Let them find your tracks. Let them build faster. Let them see what you wish you had seen. That is wealth, not just carried, not just created, but passed on.